second house.
Good morning. Welcome to the September 23rd Punta Gorda City Council meeting, September 23rd, 2020. This is the fourth Wednesday of the month. We normally meet on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, so we will resume that schedule in October. But we are here today for our second meeting in September. So if you would please rise and join me for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning and thank you. Let's pray. Father, we ask for you to empower us to stay true to the roots of this country and how it was founded. Your word tells us that a sparrow cannot fall to the ground, nor a nation rise to impact the world without your guidance, your love, and your care. Your value is equal to the sparrow and to the nation. So we are here today for the betterment of this city and this country. We ask for your guidance. We ask for your protection on each elected official, for your protection on our first responders who watch after our safety and our health. Thank you for giving to us this amazing, caring country, the United States of America. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning, everyone, and good morning if you're watching us from wherever you are on the live stream. We have quite an interesting agenda today, but we're going to deviate first because today is the final. I'm going to get teary-eyed. Yes, I am. The final city council meeting for our city manager, Howard Koenig. I've had the pleasure of working with Howard for, 14 years. When I became the volunteer CEO of Team Punta Gorda, I'll never forget, my phone rang. I was brand new on the job, and my phone rang, and I saw that Howard's name come across it. And I worked in a very autocratic corporate environment, so I just expected, like, uh-oh, what's wrong? What's going on here? And there was this gentle voice on the other end, asking me questions, was very reassuring, and that was the relationship that started back the end of 2007, I think, 2008, and it was really amazing because at a time when many government officials would say, hey, we got this. When citizens or groups come up with ideas, it's like, we got this, and so just go home and play in your sandbox or whatever. No, that wasn't Howard's style. Howard was like, well, let's talk about that and see what we can do. He was very welcoming. And when we asked, well, do you think we could have a staff member come to a committee meeting? It was like, sure. And all of a sudden, we found ideas that we were coming up with being implemented in the city. And it's like, because of his empowering style. And he gave his staff that permission. And empowerment is a wonderful thing. If you let go of that control, you can really achieve amazing things. And that's what Howard did. He not only empowered his staff, but he empowered the community. And in 2010, we asked Howard, as Team Punta Gorda, we asked him to speak at our annual meeting. And he put together this presentation called the Power of Partnership. No, that's not the title. It was Results Through Collaboration, the Power of Partnerships. There you go. And it was an amazing one. It wasn't just about Team Punta Gorda, and that's a key thing. It was about all of the groups in the Punta Gorda area that work together with the city, businesses, organizations, and residents that came together and that really brought this community back in grand style. And yet we still were mindful of our desire to protect the historic character of this community. And it's really been a wonderful partnership, Howard. You really, your leadership style has just helped this community immensely. And it's been my pleasure to work with you on City Council as well in this role. And it's been a wonderful experience. And I thank you very much, and I wish you well. Wish you well in the future. I hope that the power of partnerships is alive and well. And you have left a really wonderful legacy for us. Thank you. Any other council members? John, would you like to say something?
Sure. Well, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. I just came on council in November last year, so I don't have any backstories to tell really about Howard. He's always, as Nancy said, he's very quiet and straightforward, and you just heard him remember something that he wrote 10 or 12 years ago. I don't know how his brain works, but he always knows exactly what needs to be said and what is going on and whatever issue that we might be dealing with. I've really enjoyed working with you in this short time, and please stay close to us and don't get too far away. We need your counsel as days go forward too, I'm sure. Thank you.
Debbie?
Well, my tenure doesn't go back quite as far as Nancy's, but it started in an equally dark time for our city. Howard was putting together a citizens group to respond to probably one of our darker moments, the police shooting. And I knew him then as a citizen because I was on those committees. Later, I got to know him as candidate Carey when he was guiding me through the intricacies of city politics as a complete newbie, and now as councilperson Carey. And I will say this, steady as he goes is Howard's mantra, I think. It's certainly the one that will stay with me because I've never had any doubt that anything he did for the city or with the council was ethical and in the best interests of our city. And I think in these times, that says more than anything about somebody. Howard, thank you very much for your leadership, your even temperament, and your ethics.
Watch me try to do this without crying, because you know me. I think probably I have been around Howard more than all the rest of the council members because I was on boards and committees for more than 12 years before I got on council. And so Howard and I have known each other right from the beginning. And I think the first encounter I had was sitting at a meeting for the concerned citizens of Punta Gorda Isles, which was a real treat. And Howard just instantly sat there kind of like, what's going on and what have I gotten myself into? But you have exemplified the true definition of professionalism, honesty, and integrity. And you have made our city one that is the city to be admired. And we are a role model for all the other cities in the state of Florida. I can tell you, going to the Florida League of Cities conference, I've heard people say to the speakers in the seminars, well, our city manager doesn't even let us talk to the city staff. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, if we didn't talk to the city staff, we would get nothing done. I think there isn't one of us sitting here that doesn't call a city staff member every single day asking questions. But you have led the leadership of the entire team, and without a leader such as you, we couldn't have the team that we do. But this city runs seamlessly. And even when you're not here, everybody has a task to do, and they do it without question. And I'm very proud to be part of this city. And it's through your leadership that we have gotten to this point. And I wish you nothing but the best. And definitely, we want you to come back and harass us from time to time, because we're going to miss your leadership. Well, and you know, you have so much product knowledge stored up there that nobody is up to speed on, because only you know that stuff. So there may be time to time that we have to communicate with you to get answers to things that only you would know. But we thank you very much for your dedication to the city for the last 15 years, and happy shoveling. We're going to miss you, Howie.
Jaha?
I would say a real testament to your leadership is actually how the customer service of the city, the staff, is that I'd say that anyone who encounters any city employee, they just feel a warmth and a true concern for addressing their issue. And I just think that that's, if anything, it's just being so customer service focused, and that being the culture of our city, I think it's magnificent. I think it's just, thank you so much for all you've done. And again, we can see you through our staff. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And to know Howard, you know what a humble person he really is. And Howard really prefers not to stand out as a shining light and sit back and let the council members do that kind of thing. But and he doesn't stand on formality. And when you think of Howard, you think, well, what do we get Howard as a something as a memento? And it's like he's not a plaque kind of guy. And that kind of thing. So it really took a lot of thinking for us to figure out what is something that we could have as a memento that to give Howard that he would remember us by. So council members, if you would please join me so we can give this to Howard.
All right. They got up their sleeve. Oh, yeah. This is really good. Actually, I'll need this. Thank you.
So if anyone knows what this is, Howard, you can explain that this is something that he uses quite probably every day now.
Should I say it over there? So everybody can hear it, or- Yeah, you need
Or
to be.
there's your mic right there.
Okay. So why am I getting this? By the way, first thing I'm going to do is, after this meeting is over and tonight's meeting is over, I'm going to let Helen know everything that was said here, and the animals know everything that was said here, because I don't get that at home. This is in order to muck the stalls. We've got a couple of horses, we got a pig, so we're going to have to muck the stalls, and this will come in handy, and all this is signed.
Yes, it is.
Better not mess it up.
Oh, yeah, I can't mess this up.
Council members, former council members, staff members.
Oh, this is great. Wait till I bring this home.
And Mark Gearing even saw to it that it has the city logo and your favorite saying.
Working on it. Working on it. So anyways, this has been a joy. This was not something that you didn't want to come to work every day. And if anything, and you've seen some of the articles that have been showing up, and there'll be another one Friday. If I could have left this place just a little bit better, then I'll be pleased. And you're in great hands. Believe me, you're in great hands. Greg will just keep it moving forward, and the rest of the guys and the ladies, we're all on board. So, but I'm not going to be watching council meetings. I will not have a subscription to the Charlotte Sun. So I've got other things to do, but it's been a pleasure, a real joy. It really has. I'm leaving the best job that in the world, and that's the way I truly feel. But we've got other things to do. Helen and I have good plans ahead of us.
Awesome.
So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Why do I smile and try?
You don't need to. Okay. Thank
Yeah, if you don't mind, one more real quick. Nancy,
Nancy, one
Dan
more.
wants to take one more.
just one more real quick, please.
Okay. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, or else we'll never get
Pretty
it. These chairs are so cute.
If I sat down first, you'd think that I was.
Yeah,
holding
nobody,
it.
I know.
So I know that we have a few other people that would like to say something. So David, you said you would like to say a few words?
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief. I know that sometimes is difficult.
That's big for David.
I've had the very good fortune of being able to work with Howard for almost as long as Howard has been here. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is, on our rules of conduct, the number one rule is respect each person. I've had the opportunity to be city attorney for another city for almost as long as I was city attorney and am city attorney here. And I practice in my private capacity in front of city councils in our area. And I've got to say, the way Howard respects everyone, the city council, the city staff, the citizens that come before us, it fosters an attitude of respect amongst each other. This city council has historically respected each other's positions at every city council meeting. That is unique, and I think to a large extent, that's due to, that's the model that Howard has set in his relationship with us. So I wish him well. I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to work closely with someone that has had the rapport with you and the staff and the citizens. And I certainly hope and look forward to working with Greg in the same capacity. But I do know, and I'm sure you know as well, that is very unique in city government. And I wish him well in his future endeavors.
Thank you. Is there another staff member that wishes or to make a comment?
We're together all the time.
You're together all the time. Well, yeah, but you know,
I'll take
this
one.
is an opportunity to say something on the public record, and the residents that are people that are watching don't often get a chance to see the what we say to each other, and so I think it's.
So I'll say, Fire Chief Ray Briggs, on behalf of the rest of the staff as well, that, you know, from sock ties to impromptu songs, you know, there's not, you know, everything that's been said is so true. But we appreciate you not only as a leader and a mentor, but as a friend. So, thank you.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead.
In the book of Joshua 1:9, it says, "Be strong and courageous, and I will be with you wherever you go." God bless you, Howard.
Thank you. All right. I think then it looks like we may be ready to get on with our show today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Howard. We figured that, you know, this would be a memento that you couldn't go out and buy, so. All right, well, so the first order of the day is for public comment, and Greg is going to read public comment into the record, and after that, if there's someone that wishes to make a comment on any of our agenda items today, you will be able to come to the podium and have 3 minutes. So, Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, first of all, boy, talk about hard to follow. What do you do with that?
You got big shoes to follow there.
Absolutely,
To
absolutely
fill.
do.
Yeah.
So we do have several emails. The first two are regarding cameras in the canal. First was Bill Nelson. What is driving the canal security camera discussion? I'm against it for several reasons. Some people can't stop finding more ways to waste money. And the second is from George Bannock. I feel the idea is absurd and a waste of taxpayer money. All the years we have lived here, the amount of crime by way of the water has been minimal. I don't understand the rationale behind this. Big Brother at his worst. Good report on the sign issue. And the rest are essentially, not essentially, are regarding the mask ordinance. First from David and Betty Klingeman. Please vote against continuing the mask mandate. We haven't shopped or eaten at restaurants in Punta Gorda since the mandate was put in place. Thank goodness Cape Coral and Fort Myers had more sense and voted the mandate down. We'd love to patronize Punta Gorda stores and restaurants, but we will not as long as the mandate remains in place. Thank you. The next is from Rick Eaton. You have no legal right to tell anyone how to dress, so if you decide to extend this or even discuss this in public, you need to tell the public it's merely a suggestion and nothing you can enforce. You have no right to tell anyone how to run an individual business either. This is your warning to let all of you know you are legally liable for any damages you cause to the public or their income. There's absolutely no proof COVID-19 even existing. Yet here you are running around making rules to make yourself feel better. Rick Eaton. The next is from Jacqueline Whitaker. I would encourage the city council to extend the sunset date of the emergency ordinance 1944-2020, which requires facial coverings in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Until there is a widely available vaccine for COVID-19, the danger of the virus will remain the same. The progress that the state and our county has made in reducing the rate of infection is due to the wearing of face coverings. With more businesses opening and willingness of residents to go out in public, it is even more important that we continue to wear face coverings to avoid regressing to a previously high infection rate. The next from Todd Stanfield. I work, shop, and dine in the city of Punta Gorda. I feel much freer to patronize businesses in the city because of the mask ordinance. The majority of citizens do comply with little to no problem. Without the ordinance, especially in advance of flu season, the citizens of Punta Gorda would be much less safe. Please vote to extend the mandate. Thank you in advance. Tammy McIver-Gay. Hello, I read that the mask ordinance for Punta Gorda is up for consideration again. As a citizen of Punta Gorda, I am asking you to please follow the science and extend the ordinance. It should be extended until there is a vaccine. Our numbers are fairly low in Punta Gorda. Let's please keep it that way. Without the mask ordinance, you should expect numbers to rise, which will result in a loss of confidence for residents to patronize local business. This will in turn hurt our already fragile local economy. It could also result in us needing to return to closing businesses down or greatly restricting operating capacity. Our local businesses cannot afford more shutdowns and restrictions. The city and state will never recover from that type of economic damage. Additionally, without a citywide mask ordinance, you have inconsistent rules and place the burden on businesses to mandate masks within their establishments. That is not fair for business, and it is confusing for citizens. It causes absolutely no harm to anyone to require a mask. Those who claim it impinges on their freedom need to ask themselves why it is any different than laws, ordinances that prohibit things like nudity in public. People are required to wear pants in public. Why is wearing a mask any different? It physically harms nobody to not wear pants in public, but not wearing masks can directly result in the illness and death of people. The freedom argument is completely nonsensical position, as there are many laws that restrict our activities, which anti-maskers seem to have absolutely no issue with. It is mind-boggling to me that masks are even a debate. The failure to require masks will ultimately cause extensive new harm to our local economy. With winter around the corner, which brings the return of snowbirds and visitors, it would be a grave mistake to allow the political polarization of a mask mandate to supersede science. Please continue to protect your citizens. You have no greater responsibility than this. Abdicating the responsibility would be a complete dereliction of your most basic responsibility. Thank you for your consideration. I am hopeful you will do the right thing for all of us. Don and Sue Krasny. To the City Council, since it appears that the mask ordinance coupled with social distancing has helped curb the coronavirus in our city and county, we feel that it is vital to continue the ordinance. It has become obvious that without the ordinance, some people will stop wearing masks and gather in public places. That endangers all of us. Additionally, as one of the Sea Grape Gallery business owners, the city mask ordinance protects us from having to implement our own private mask ordinance, which would be more difficult. Please not only extend this ordinance, but consider continuing it until the beginning of next year. Thank you. Sheila Jager. To your council members, please extend the mask mandate. Punta Gorda is a city with a vulnerable population. Janet Thomas. The ordinance is working. Vote to extend it through December for all of the senior citizens of our community. John and Bonnie Benaid. Good morning. We are on vacation, but we understand that the council will be voting on extending the mask ordinance. We would like to impress upon you and the council to extend the ordinance to at least the end of November or even the end of the year. As a business in town, Sea Grape Gallery, it is very important to us to inform our customers that this is a citywide ordinance and not just our rule. We feel that wearing a mask and social distancing is very helpful in slowing the rate of the virus. Please pass the ordinance for the good of the community. Thank you for considering this important decision. Sue and Stan Kapuczynski. We are aware that the city council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the continuance of the mask ordinance in Punta Gorda. Our vote would definitely be to continue this policy since it has been proven to curb the spread of the coronavirus in our city as well as the world when coupled with social distancing. We know that without the ordinance, people will become lax and stop wearing masks, which would be an endangerment to all of us. In addition, I am an owner at Seagrape Gallery, and the mask ordinance protects me and makes it easier to enforce rather than having to implement our own policy. Please vote yes to extend this ordinance in caps. Thank you. Shar Robinson. We stopped at Wawa across the bridge the other day, really experienced the importance of masks. It was a busy spot. Lots of different types and ages of people, and nobody except the help and a couple of seniors were wearing masks. Also noticed that no one was using social distancing, even in the checkout area where the floor is marked. When I mentioned it to the checkout lady, she said that is because it's not a rule in Port Charlotte. They are not comfortable asking people to wear masks. Please continue the mask ordinance. It was a brave decision to start with. Keep up the good work. Diane Fontaine. Hello, City Council. Rather than extend the ordinance another 30 days, which seems like a half measure, extend it for a full 90 days. Jada Webb. The mask mandate needs to end. We can't wear masks the rest of our lives, people. Anyone with common sense knows this. I have witnessed a lot of people going into places to eat have to put on masks just to be seated at a table 3 feet away. After being seated, the mask is then taken off and placed on the table. Masks are everywhere after being worn. And we are supposed to think wearing masks keeps us safe. Who thought of this? Our food servers are cleaning out and up dirty glasses, picking up silverware or dirty glasses that we drank out of. Our napkins, we just wiped our mouth and nose with. I can go on forever. Our kids are now trading masks at school because they think it's cool. This whole thing makes no sense and doesn't seem to keep people safe. Can't we just ditch the mask? Ron Myers, I believe you should not extend the mask update. The effectiveness of proper mask wearing is open to scientific debate. That being said, look around town, watch people and their mask use. Hardly anyone is properly wearing, handling, cleaning, or disposing of their mask. Wash your hands and stay home if you are sick or scared. This is from Nicole Feliciano. To whom it may concern, I am writing this email to express my concern and opinion about the mask mandate that the city of Punta Gorda put into place. First and foremost, the masks were recommended to flatten the curve by the CDC. You're allowing politicians to cover the community's voices, to be scared, to live in fear. Shame on you. The mask mandate should have never passed in the first place. Masks should be an option to each person and business, not mandatory. If individuals feel they are vulnerable, then they should wear their mask. You are forcing businesses to lose money because of the ridiculous mask mandates. It starts with you to change this political expletive agenda. Nancy Overman. Please consider voting in favor of extending the mask mandate for Punta Gorda. There are still some who feel it is against their right to have to wear a mask. On the opposite side, I feel it is against my right for them to possibly expose me to the virus. I don't have the facts to back me up, but in talking with people, they and myself have again started spending money in Punta Gorda businesses since the mask mandate went into effect. Remember the old adage, better safe than sorry. Andrew Clark. I want you all to imagine in your minds what our founding fathers of our great country would say to you if they were alive today. Would they be for a governmental municipal body making mandatory health care decisions for the populace that pays their salary? Would they support your nanny state un-American ideology? Of course they wouldn't. They would categorize you in the same category as their former British oppressors. I implore you to think for yourself and not try to conform to the CDC, which has long been corrupted by former healthcare and pharmaceutical CEOs and lobbyists. And the CDC has an interest in prolonging the pandemic, so they stay funded and replace something. The pandemic is turning into an industry, much like the endless wars in the Middle East, except this time we the people are the enemy of the elite, special interest class, and you unfortunately are members of. Stay out of our healthcare decisions. This virus has a lower mortality rate than the flu when you factor in comorbidity. Also, it is intrusive and unreasonable that the city manager produced a list of personal health care questions that taxpayers must answer to enter City Hall. Regina Saladino, please continue the mask ordinance until we have flattened the curve according to guidelines. Since it is not enforced, what would it hurt? As season approaches, I fear for the worst. Bobby and AC Tally. Hello, we strongly believe in masks being mandatory inside public places. This morning I got my first flu shot in over 10 years. I'm trying to be as careful as possible. Harry and Joyce Strait. The indoor mask mandate ordinance should be extended through November 6, 2020. The wearing of mask has been proven to be an effective aid in reducing the spread of COVID-19 virus. There is ready proof that the virus is still present and active in the local population. It is therefore vital that all reasonable precautions to prevent its spread should remain in place. The wearing of mask is a reasonable precaution, and we consider it an honor, privilege, and obligation to wear a mask to help protect our fellow citizens. David Tarbo, sorry if I butchered that, but dear City Council, scientific and anecdotal evidence from around the world definitely show the widespread use of masks is the most effective ways to protect the user and those they encounter from COVID-19. Those who argue that a mandate infringes on their liberties should also protest no shoes, no shirt, no service requirements. Clearly, their demonstrations are politically driven. Please continue the mask ordinance for all our sakes. Mary Angela Lelly, I'm 79 years old and have a lung condition. Please keep the mask ordinance in place. I keep telling my kids up north I can't be there. I'm here in Punta Gorda. Carol Teehee and family, I know masks are necessary to slow and stop the spread of COVID-19. It's no different than enforcing seatbelt laws, but saves more innocent lives and billions of dollars in health care. Please continue to mandate wearing masks. It is the right thing to do. Thank you. Roger Wiley, please use your vote and influence on City Council to ensure that the requirements for wearing masks in our city is continued until the end of the year or when a COVID-19 vaccine becomes available. I've been very proud of our city officials for requiring this very basic protection, while our national, state, and county officials apparently have lacked the integrity and courage to extend this simple requirement. Thank you very much. Rochelle and Artie Ballman, we are senior citizens and live in Punta Gorda, and the mask mandate here gives us confidence to go shopping and to do takeout. It also reduces stress knowing that when we go into a store that we do not have to be confronted with people not wearing masks. We hope that you will continue the mask mandate. Barbara Katzev. Dear council members, I would like to express my support for extending the mask mandate. It has worked very well these past few months. The overwhelming majority of people have voluntarily complied without the need for police enforcement. Our local businesses have been able to operate, and residents and visitors can enter the stores and other business establishments without fear of becoming infected or infecting others. By mitigating the spread of COVID-19 and the seasonal flu as we now enter flu season, we will also ensure that our local hospitals will not be overrun. I am grateful to our local leadership, which has shown the wisdom and courage to protect the health and safety of its residents. Celeste Gwynn and Edmund Davis. My husband and I would like to ask you to continue the mask mandate at least through November 6th. We have felt very comfortable in Punta Gorda and are looking forward to doing more takeout and shopping in Punta Gorda in the coming weeks. It has been a respite to the day-to-day existence at home since COVID. We look forward to doing our Christmas shopping in Punta Gorda as we avoid Lee County and other areas because there is no mask mandate. Also, since flu season is going to start, it would add further complications to this difficult time without mask. Thank you for your consideration. We are very proud to be residents of Punta Gorda. John Kloster, I am writing in support of extending the above ordinance. I understand people are tired of the restrictions. I am also, however, the coronavirus continues to spread throughout our country and area. And while we will not see the spike other parts of the country experience by spending more time indoors due to cold weather, we will have a large influx of snowbirds from across the country. They will bring with them exposure from wherever they are from, just as college campuses have seen outbreaks nationwide from students returning. Please don't give up now. Thank you. Carol Perry, dear council members, I request that you continue the mask ordinance to keep our residents safe. I want to do everything in our city and enjoy knowing that we will all be safer. Thank you. Bev McMahon, please, please, please extend the mask mandate. I believe those medical professionals who are telling us that social distancing and masks are essential in order to flatten our curve. Thank you all for having the courage to do the right thing. Tab T. Hello, concerned citizens. I am aware that a very important decision is being made, a decision that lives depend on, the lives of your family, friends, and neighbors. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the wearing of masks has been a topic of great controversy and argument. For the COVID conspiracy theorists, it looked as a violation of their rights to force mask wearing upon them. To the caring, compassionate, and vulnerable, wearing masks is a very small act to show we care about doing our part to stop the spread of this deadly virus. Seatbelt and helmet laws protect you, and that is forced upon us whether we believe in it or not. Your decision to not buckle up will affect no other people. Your decision to not wear a motorcycle helmet will only kill you, no other people. Wearing a mask may not save you, but it may save your family, friends, and vulnerable. Thank you for your time, Tab T. And that ends the citizens' comment to be read in the record.
Thank you. If there's anyone, excuse me, if there's anyone who wishes to make a public comment, please come to the podium and you have 3 minutes. If you would please introduce yourself.
Morning, my name's Dave Kalen. I want to thank you all for taking the time today to hear this. Understand your position where you're at, former Pennsylvania State Commissioner, so oftentimes it is a thankless job. People show up to complain, not to thank you. However, I would like to talk about your mask ordinance, 1944-2020. I'm not a doctor, not a scientist, and not a lawyer. I'm here to express my concerns from what I've experienced. I can no longer shop in the city of Punta Gorda. I have an actual medical exemption. It will become very dangerous for me to wear a mask due to an arterial condition in my brain. I can no longer work at my job at the airline because I've been seen unfit for duty because I cannot wear a mask on a flight, so I am now left with no income until this is over. However, when I go shopping in the city of Punta Gorda, the citizens now feel so emboldened to scream at me, to yell at me. I've had people spit on me because I don't have a mask on. It is putting me in a position where I now, without income, have to drive further to purchase my groceries, things that I need for my household, on a very minimal savings and income. It has been very difficult to get through this. I understand the concerns everyone has. I too contracted coronavirus. The only good thing that came out of it, I didn't have to deal with the public for 3 weeks. I quarantined at home for an additional week to ensure that I could pass the negative test, which I did. Unfortunately, to come out to the city of Punta Gorda's ordinance and being berated by the public. And it's not just the public. I took my daughter to school the other day, who also has Tourette's. She cannot wear a mask. It was an uphill battle for her to get a medical exemption for her Tourette's, despite having a 504 plan, which under the CDC guidelines falls under a mask exemption. Upon dropping her off at school with an additional doctor's exemption, I was nearly arrested by 2 police officers from Punta Gorda City because I didn't have my mask. This has got to give. Something's got to go. So what I would encourage you to do is put in a resolution. Back your businesses that want to support a mask mandate in their store, but make it optional so that you take away that emboldened power to those that would berate, harass, and just outright accost somebody because I can't wear the mask. So I do appreciate your time today. I hope you take these words to heart and understand, and this is not under any political motivation. It is out of fear for my life from those who would cause me harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, no applause in the audience. Thank you.
Oh, we got 2 applause for the city manager, but not, okay.
Well, when we are in public comment, let me make a clarification here. When we are in public comment, we respect everyone's right to make a comment, and we do not want to intimidate anyone who is in this room. So if we applaud, the person next to you may not feel the same way that you do. And then they may feel intimidated and then not feel that they can get up and make a comment safely. So we respect everyone's right to make a comment, and we want to hear everyone, so thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jessie Bennett. I was here last time. I too thank you for this, although I don't know how you had so many public comments. This meeting was not on the calendar. The only place I did catch it was, I happened to hear my grandfather reading it in the newspaper, and I grabbed it and seen the little article, and I spread it around Facebook really, really heavily. But anyways, this whole stack of this folder is from the U.S. Attorney General talking about how heavily guarded our religious freedom is. Not one of these mask mandates resolutions has religious exemption in there. I cannot wear a mask. For my religion, Jesus does not want me to wear a mask. It is mentioned in the Bible. For anybody who's in the Bible, it is in the Word, Old Testament, the New Testament. If you are not familiar with the Word, get in the Word. Jesus does not want you. I will paraphrase. When you speak to the Lord, you will be unveiled. I cannot wear a mask. I also have medical issues. I have MS. I have a tumor in my right nasal passage. I can't, but I will not use my medical exemption. My religion comes first. The depth and breadth of constitutional and statutory protections for religious observance and practice in America confirm the enduring importance of religious freedom to the United States. They also provide clear guidance for all those charged with enforcing federal law. The free exercise of religion is not limited to a right to hold personal religious beliefs or even to worship in a sacred place. It encompasses all aspects of religious observance and practice. To the greatest extent practicable and permitted by law, such religious observance and practice should be reasonably accommodated in all government activity, including employment, contracting, and programming. I could go on, but it's all, you guys don't even mention religious exemptions anywhere. And even when the police came in and were talking to us and asked everybody if they had a medical exemption, I didn't even say anything. All I did was open my book and pull out an exemption. They didn't even ask. They just said medical exemption. I just said I have an exemption. That's it. Where is my exemption? Where is my freedom? This is ridiculous. Either you don't know the law or you're just doing this to appease people. That's not right. That is not right.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make a comment, please come to the podium. You have 3 minutes. And if anybody else wishes to make a comment, would you please get behind this gentleman? Thank you.
Good morning, City Council. First, I want to say how disgusting.
What is your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Andrew Clark.
Thank you.
Mayor, I want to say you acted extremely hypocritically earlier when you allowed us to clap for your city manager, but you didn't allow us to clap for the citizenry, the people who pay you your salary. I thought that was very hypocritical of you. Next, there is 2 individuals on the city council who are phenomenal, Jaha and this gentleman right here, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. Every time I try to contact them, they correspond back with me and they're very civil and nice. The rest of you, you don't answer your phone. You don't answer emails. It's disgusting. You guys are making this mandate. You guys are loyal to the UN. You are not loyal to the United States Constitution. Our founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves right now. And I also want to say that blue lives matter. And we are sick and tired of the disgusting Democrats in this country trying to destroy this country. And we know Democrats support rioters and looters. And to you police officers, God bless you. Thank you for your service. This mask mandate is a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle for communism. And you people don't understand that we the people pay your salary. not the UN, not the WHO, we the people. This is a glorified flu. The mortality rate is less than the flu. That's the truth. These people are perpetuating communism. Communism from China. That's who these people are loyal to. They are not loyal to you. And I implore you, police officers who we love so much, and we are sick and tired of you being rioted against, we implore you to honor your oath to the United States Constitution. You don't have to be loyal to these tyrants. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to make a comment, please come to the podium. You have 3 minutes.
My name's Kenley George. I'm sure you already have your minds made up just like last time. And just like last time, you're basing your dictatorial decisions on fear and virtue signaling and not on scientific facts. The reason for restrictions and masks was to lessen the influx of patients in hospitals. This was accomplished, so much so that our local hospitals were seeing less than half of their usual volumes. Our hospitals were dead for months and they had to lay off employees. So now the masks, all this stuff, it's not necessary. The hospitals are completely underwhelmed, okay? We're told masks will prevent asymptomatic carriers from spreading the virus. COVID is spread by respiratory droplets. Respiratory droplets are spread by coughing and sneezing. If you're asymptomatic, you're not coughing and you're not sneezing. That's what asymptomatic means. You have no symptoms of this. So I'm wearing a mask to prevent the spread of this. If you're asymptomatic, you're not coughing. You're not spreading your respiratory droplets. Okay, I'm a respiratory therapist. I know all about this. I've worked with COVID patients. I work in the hospitals. I see firsthand, what is going on. Okay, so I think I have a lot of validity here when I talk about this. Unlike in Charlotte County, who's on their city commissioner board? A plastic surgeon. Okay, do you think he works with COVID patients? No, he's a plastic surgeon. Okay, so the CDC just announced their guidance on COVID airborne transmission was, and I quote, a draft published in error. So it's not airborne. The CDC and Dr. Fauci flip-flopped on issues from mask efficacy to the transmission of the virus. So how are these people reliable? They're not. In the fall Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons, Dr. Lawrence Huntoon states the history and bias and conflict of interest calls into question the scientific validity of recommendations made by the CDC. There's tons of headlines in Florida of all these labs saying we're reporting 100% positivity rates on all their tests. Okay, this has been discovered and it's complete. It's false, okay? They're falsifying so many false negatives. And did you hear about the 77 NFL players that all tested positive, then they got retested, they were all negative, okay? There was just a big dump of all these test results. I think 7,500 test results that were old test results. So they're inflating the numbers. All of this is not what they're telling you, everything. It's a complete fraud of these numbers. It's ridiculous. Another issue with the mask mandate coming up November 3rd, I'm gonna go vote. I'm not gonna be told to put on a mask to go vote. There was a woman recently in the primary, she went to go vote and they wouldn't let her in. Voter disfranchisement, that's illegal. You can't do that. You can't institute something. Disenfranchisement, taking away the right to vote accomplished explicitly by law or implicitly through requirements applied in a discriminatory fashion or by placing unreasonable requirements on voters, like wearing a mask. When I go vote, are they going to tell me that I can't enter? I can't place my vote? I'm not going to put a mask on, and I want to put my own ballot into the box.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make a comment, please come to the podium. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Tammy Kalin. I am not against masks. People should have the right to choose what's in the best interest of their own health. There's a reason the CDC chose to recommend masks versus mandating, but in early July, the Punta Gorda City Council rejected the CDC's recommendation and replaced it with a mask mandate. This mask mandate set an example for the Charlotte County Commissioners and the school board members to pursue their own mandates. And I appreciate that Charlotte County Commissioners recognized the serious error of a mask mandate and proceeded forward with a recommendation. This mandate was created out of panic and fear. This mandate set forth into motion unintended consequences for anyone who does not wear a mask. And it doesn't matter why someone doesn't wear a mask, if it's for medical exemptions, religious exemptions, or simply the right to choose what is best for their own health. This mandate placed many of us into confrontational environments. With the vast majority of Punta Gorda businesses within the city limits, it has made my personal life and members of my family with medical exemptions and has turned our lives into a living nightmare. With the mask guards at the entrances of so many businesses who are instructed to keep all unmasked people out as directed by your mandate, getting into a store was a challenge. My husband and I have spent many times educating people about the American Disabilities Act, yet several businesses didn't care they were violating federal laws in the American Disability Act. Immediately after the city mandate was passed, there was a distinct change in the general public's behavior and action. Within that first week of the passed mandate, the harassment, the verbal abuse, barrage of comments and nasty remarks ensued, creating a very hostile environment. Nearly all of my problematic encounters have occurred while shopping within the city limits. The fact that these problems rarely happen outside the city limits is a startling contrast that reflects the difference a mandate can create. There are the typical rude comments about wearing a mask, it's the law, but there also have been comments where people have said, I hope you get COVID and die. But it has gone far beyond just the verbal abuse. I have been physically accosted by a man who stood over 6 feet tall. As I was getting an item off the shelf, the man rammed his cart into me hard enough that it caused bruising later. It was completely obvious that it was done on purpose to hurt me because I did not have a mask on. I rarely shop alone anymore because of that day in late July. And I do not expect you to understand or comprehend the additional stress, anxiety, or the emotional toll that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to make a comment today on our agenda items? Please come to the podium. You have 3 minutes.
Hello. As somebody
Can you
stated,
please state your name?
Jenna Thomas.
Thank you.
As somebody stated earlier about the wearing mask into the voting, how it's been, that was me. I was totally discriminated against for not having a mask. And it wasn't even in the city of Punta Gorda, it was in Charlotte County. So this mask mandate has literally made everybody like lose their minds and like just lose their morals and their sense of compassion for people with medical conditions. I've been discriminated against in many other stores and businesses to the point where it's not even fun or enjoyable to spend my money here in Punta Gorda. I take it elsewhere where they don't make me feel like less of a person wearing a mask. It's just, you know, I'm responsible for my health. I boost my immune system, I exercise, I eat good. This is not something a mask is going to protect me from. And there's tons and tons of studies out there, all listed in this book if anybody has ever read it, if you want all the studies where masks are not effective in the spread of COVID or other things. Literally, if you want a mask that will protect you against the particles of viruses, you would die because you wouldn't be able to breathe. The CDC has come out numerous times saying, yes, masks are effective. No, they're not. It's just so flip-floppy. And the CDC isn't even a government entity. It is a business. They have vaccine patents. They do all kinds of research, and it's a business. They're not for the people. So in order to bring people back together, back to the old normal, not this new normal that I refuse to accept, where everybody is just miserable. You need to see people's faces, their expressions, their smiles. That's how people, you know, enjoy life. Everybody I've known or that comes into my local business, they're like, do we have to wear this in here? I'm like, no, please breathe some fresh air. Please breathe the fresh air. That's what's going to keep you safe, is fresh air, not breathing in your own bacteria and breath. And It's just absolutely insane. And for people to just to be mean to others for not wearing a mask. Like, they literally come up and hate on you, hit you, do other things. It's awful. That's not what humanity is for. If you're afraid of the virus, then you should stay home. If you're afraid of getting sick or anything, you should be staying home, not the healthy people, not the people who want to get on with their lives, who want to make a living, who want to make a difference, who want to enjoy their time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to make a comment? Okay, seeing none then, we will, since Dr. Pepe is here, can we proceed with this agenda item?
Can we introduce Debbie Kreider first? 'Cause
Oh,
so
I'm
she
sorry,
can
you're
get
right.
to work.
The first item on the agenda was the
To get back to her
presentation
job.
of Dr. Kreider, our Executive Director for the Punta Gorda Isles Civic Association. And I think, Greg, you wanted to do this?
Yes, if I could, please.
Okay.
We'll just let you stand there for a moment. Just as an introduction, this is something that the Civic Association had put out. Debbie joins the Punta Gorda Isles Civic Association after over 20 years of executive leadership in nonprofit healthcare organizations. Her leadership skills include managing budgets in excess of 20 million, fueling significant growth from both marketing and networking efforts, fundraising, developing and leading employee educational and training programs, and successful collaboration with both staff and volunteers to achieve organizational goals. Debbie's educational background and executive experience will truly benefit the association. Her experience also affords Debbie with a deep understanding of how the Civic Association's educational offerings and opportunities for community engagement support our mission. One quote from Debbie was, "I strive to develop great relationships with all stakeholders and to keep people engaged, connected, and bonded to the organization's mission." Debbie earned her Doctor of Education with a focus in leadership, administration, and supervision from Northwestern University. She also holds a Master of Education in Counseling and Consultation from Keene State College and an undergraduate degree in Teaching and Counseling from Salisbury University, Maryland. Debbie
You
also...
had to put that in there, didn't you?
I thought it said that. I was wrong. Debbie also achieved yellow and green certifications in Lean Six Sigma. They've actually owned property in Punta Gorda Isles for over 10 years and have lived here full-time since January. Debbie, if
Well,
you would.
thank you for having me today, and I will be brief, but I just, what an emotional, wonderful send-off. I still have teary eyes, and my nose is dripping because of that send-off. It was fabulous, so thank you for that. It was wonderful to hear all the stories. So I just want to say, you know, I love the relationship that we have. We want to support the city to be healthy and vibrant, and that's what our mission is. And so I'm really here. I want to, you know, have relationships with you all and, you know, come to us if we can be of any help. I'm excited that people are feeling hopeful. Our phone's ringing. People are calling for weddings now. They're, you know, they're thinking about the future, that things are going to get better, and that's just, you know, wonderful. So I thank you for having me here today. You know, you all met with me individually, and I really appreciate that. And I know, you know, I've shared my Maryland stories with some of you that have a spot in your heart for Maryland, but I really appreciate that. And lastly, I appreciate everything you've done for the city. I feel blessed to live in such a wonderful location and to be surrounded with such wonderful people. So I thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow and thanking you tomorrow when we're together. So thanks so much.
Thank you. We're so glad that you took the time to come and be with us today. Awesome. And we'll look forward to working with you in the future. All right, so we will proceed with our agenda item number, it's C3.
Intro to
Uh,
boards and committees?
Oh, well, okay, yes. Is there anyone who wishes to introduce themselves as a board and committee member nominee? Please come to the podium if you are here to introduce yourself. We would love to get to know you. Thank you. I guess I'm too eager to get on with this agenda items.
Mayor, would you
So-
like me to read the resolution by title only first?
That would be great.
All
Go
right.
ahead and do that.
So this is a resolution, which I'll read by title only. A resolution of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, extending the sunset date of Emergency Ordinance 1944-2020, which requires facial coverings in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency.
And we have Dr. Pepe, or Joe Pepe, here to talk with us today. Give us an update on where things stand in Charlotte County and the whole situation. So-
Thank you. And if the board just give me a small 30 seconds, I promise, but I worked with Howard, and I see he left the room at a perfect moment. I worked with him back in 2000, working when I was in higher education, and we were putting together an academic village in Cape Coral, and I got to tell you that everything that was said about him today exactly holds true from when I met him over 20 years ago. So he's a great guy, and I just wanted to add from the great philosopher, Dr. Seuss, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. So we are blessed to have him in our lives for the last 20 years. So I just wanted to share that with you. So let's talk about the COVID updates. I'll share some data with you, and then I also am connected to our database so that I can give you some more granular detailed data as far as case numbers specific to Punta Gorda. So maybe that'll help you in your conversation in determining course of action. I think before you have a couple of choices. I think you're well aware of those options. Continue the ordinance, transitioning to a resolution of some type to support mask wearing, as well as canceling the entire thing and moving forward. So I think I'm here to support you through all that conversation, and if there's any specific detail or questions you might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll be happy to fill in the details for you. But looking at it from the case perspective from the state of Florida, I'll start macro and then work our way to local. The case numbers have really diminished significantly compared to where we were a month ago, and even 2 months ago. We're under 4,000 cases a day, significantly, as well as the fatality rate has declined dramatically. My understanding is a couple of things with fatality. I think that a couple of things are happening. One is the age of the impacted individuals. The median age has shifted dramatically to younger adults, and that has a profound impact as far as on health outcomes when impacted with COVID, as well as medical care has really improved. We know a lot more about this virus now. The convalescent plasma, as well as remdesivir and some other strategies like proning and not using ventilators and things like that, has really made a significant difference. And then other is people are getting into care earlier, which also makes a significant impact in outcomes. So just wanted to share that with you as far as just a macro trend. When we look at Charlotte County specific, we've seen a significant decrease as well. We've had several days with single-digit numbers of cases, which has been a really wonderful recent event. We're not there yet as far as where we're not seeing transmission within the community, but if things stay the way they are, we're on the right path. So a couple of highlights to note is, we had the holiday weekend as well as schools reopening. Both were areas of concern, obviously, for congregating and socializing, as well as with schools reopening safely, making sure that we can slow the spread of COVID. And the goal has always been to not be an easy community for transmission so that we don't overwhelm our medical infrastructure and people can get the medical care they need. And so, as you can see, that is working. The median age right now is 55. If I were to present to you the presentation from 2 months ago, we were in the upper 60s. So it has been a dramatic shift. We've had days where median age was somewhere in the mid-30s. So it's really having an impact in household spread. What we're seeing right now is household transmission between caregivers and children. And so some of the transmission areas that we're seeing as well is, in our schools and in our workplaces, we're doing a really good job at infection control and mitigating spread. But quite honestly, what's happening is the activities that happen outside of those areas, the socializing and the other things, which is a good thing because we need to reopen and we need to do that. It's just a matter of, I think, a lot of really good education to let people know that the danger is still there. It's just a matter of go out and celebrate and live your lives, just use precaution, that's all. So I think that's really important. When we look at specific health metrics for Charlotte County, you can see that our influenza visits are going up dramatically, as well as our COVID visits to the emergency room are declining. A couple of things happening. We're coming into flu season. We've seen a lot of strep throat and things like that as well. And so we're continuing to monitor that. And our medical community has done a great job in early screening and interventions. We've seen different test sites through private medical providers, as well as we've been also leaning forward as an agency to help support schools reopening. We've done after-hours testing on the weekends as well, and some other strategies at the health department to make sure that testing was available, especially for our kids. And so all of that is all about giving intelligence to folks to make the proper decisions, whether to isolate, stay home, recover, and then come back to work or school when it's safe. The school district itself has excluded a significant amount of kids from school due to symptoms, just like they would normally. But then a majority of those children have been returned back to school once they've been cleared either by a medical provider or by test. So they've been able to rule out that it's not COVID, it was something else, and then they return to school. The other component that we worked with the school district on is the sibling exclusion. So for example, if one child is symptomatic and then there are other siblings that are in other schools who may not be symptomatic, in an abundance of caution, there was a broad exclusion because there were potentially household exposures. And so we've since kind of reined some of that back into making sure that the exclusion rules are applying to COVID positive individuals and things like that. So we're trying to do everything we can to minimize the impact to our community as far as exclusions and things like that. We're really just trying to operate as safely as possible. So that's sort of where we're at in general. I'll show you a little bit about cases by zip code, and then I'm going to go into another area. You can see not all zip codes are the same, and in Charlotte County, our highest density zip code, and it's its highest density in population as well, as the 5.2 zip code. So so I just wanted to share that with you so you can see where we're significant. And remember that that density also has an impact because there are nursing homes and other facilities that are in that area, as well as hospitals. So those all have a slight skew on that data. So it doesn't mean that that it's extremely dangerous to be in the 5.2 zip code. It just means that there are some facilities that have been impacted that drive up that rate per capita. So with that, I'll toggle over to my dashboard. I shared this with you the last time, and I was able to pull up specifically to the 5.0 and 5.5 zip code. And so you can see that in the bottom right corner, in recent days, the amount of cases in our zip code for the city of Punta Gorda has been single digits, 1 and 2, maybe 3. We had a couple of days where we had a significant amount of cases. Those cases were associated with the items that I described to you earlier, as well as potential long-term care facilities as well. So we've had a couple of clusters associated there. But when we look at, I'll make this a little bit larger and then I can go back in time a little bit. So when we go back in time, you can clearly see back in July, the amount of cases per day was significantly higher than where we're at today. So we're definitely headed in the right direction. So if you look at the spike post 4th of July and that whole area there, we think that was more associated with social gatherings. This huge spike over here is a byproduct of Quest Diagnostics dumped, I believe it was 75,000 cases into the Florida system. And just to make comment to the message about the labs reporting 100%, the issue with that was, this was several months ago, there were several labs that were reporting out the positives, but not the negatives, because they were, the way it was set up in our system, and the way they were reporting electronically. That's since been fixed, and we added those numbers in. So for Charlotte County, the recent spike, we had additional 10 cases. So it really didn't skew our numbers a whole lot out of 300 and something lab results. I don't remember the exact number, but my point being is it actually moved us more to a lower positivity rate because there were a lot more negatives that came into our database. So it is a concern when we get data dumps like that. We don't want that. We want to make sure we follow up quickly on all of our cases, and our EPI team does a great job. But that's really what that comes down to when we talk about lab results. When you look at when the ordinance was put in place around the 8th of July, you can see that basically the next couple of weeks is really those that have been exposed prior to the ordinance going into effect. Then we had this big spike, and then moving forward, you can see clearly that there's been a shift. We had a little spike around the holiday weekend and schools reopening, and then it's come back down into single digits again. So when you look at it in general, there has been a significant shift in the number of cases in Punta Gorda since the mask mandate went into place. We've had some spikes as a result of different holidays and reopenings, but then it's quickly been suppressed. It's not been this logarithmic increase in cases that takes a long time to come back down again. Our hospitals are busy. There was a comment earlier about our hospitals being empty, and they are doing better, but what I can tell you is that the hospitals have at times gone to status red due to staffing levels and things like that. So even if a bed is availability, there's been a lot of sick outs, call outs, especially over the weekends, and specialty care has been a challenge. You can see in recent days, the red line that we put in the graph is really kind of my warning line to start ramping up any specific concerns, asking for resources and things like that, and that's at 200 beds for the entire hospital system. And you can see 3, 4, 5 days ago, we went below that 200 number. So the hospitals are busy. We're seeing volumes today similar to what we would see during season, and so that's a concern because we want to make sure that our medical infrastructure doesn't get overwhelmed. When we look at our ICU utilization, well, one more thing before I go off of this slide. We're also, this correlates with those spikes that I mentioned to you earlier. When we see an impact to our nursing homes, that has a direct impact into our hospitals. And so we've seen some recent transfers out of nursing homes and long-term care facilities. Not a lot, but in an abundance of caution, they're transferring those patients out in order to contain in the nursing home, but also get them care quickly. When we look at the let's go over here to ICUs. So this slide here is really important because the darker blue is the area that represents those under the age of 65 that are in intensive care. These are all COVID cases exclusively. This does not include cardiac cases, post-surgery, anything like that. So when you look at right now, as of yesterday, we have 12 people under the age of 65 that are in ICU due to COVID. So when we talk about this virus, it is not an older person's virus. It can have very significant negative impacts for those that are younger. I have a colleague that is home now, fortunately. He was in Fawcett for 20 days, 14 days in ICU, and had underlying health conditions and things like that. But what I'm telling you is that this virus can impact people very negatively. And so what we're doing right now is we don't have the ability to completely stop it, and the masks are not perfect. However, all of these things are tools in our toolkit to slow the spread. People are tired. They're tired of being told what to do. They're tired of COVID. Just fatigue has set in, no different than what we had in the 04-05 season when we had all the hurricanes. We're now in storm beta in our hurricane season this year. So what I'm getting at is that a lot of the frustration that I hear and that I see, even with my own team and my own family, is when is this going to end and how much longer? And so what I tell everybody is that this is a long-term recovery until we have a very significant medical intervention like a vaccine. And so anything that we can do to help make us less vulnerable to a rapid spread of cases is a good thing. You have some options going to a resolution. I think really what it comes down to, quite honestly, at the end of the day, is how well does the community trust us in the guidance and also believe in what we're asking them to do makes a difference. And education comes into play, and I talk to folks all the time. Personally, wearing a mask is annoying. I don't like it. And, but I couldn't live with myself if I had been sick and get someone else sick and they have a poor health outcome especially. So I'll do whatever I can do to help my part. This is an exhaust filter. This does not protect me. This is for me to slow the spread of my droplets so that in the event that I might be positive and not know it, I'm not adding more to the room. It makes my footprint smaller in the community. So I get it. There's no perfect mask. There's no perfect solution right now, but all of these things are kind of playing together to help support each other. You can clearly see the numbers are down. The control measures and mitigating factors that we put into the schools, working with the school districts, has really made a difference. You can see that there's not a massive proliferation of cases right now. We're about a month in, and things are staying reasonably stable. In another county that I oversee right now, the school district made the decision to shut down the middle and high school because of the amount of cases and the rate of spread and concern. So we're not seeing that here right now, thank goodness. But I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's really important just to share the data with everyone so they can see where things are at, where we're headed, and where we're going. As far as ventilator utilization, we're in a good place with ventilator utilization. We have extra surplus that I brought into the area early on, so we're okay there. And then, you know, when we look at our hospitals in general, you can see that it's been a downward trend since July. So I want to keep it that way and continue to have that progress. And the goal has always been to flatten the curve. That's what we've said since February, and all of these measures help do some of that. With that, I'd love to answer any questions you have.
Questions, Lynn?
Joe, can you explain the difference in symptoms from a regular flu versus what the symptoms for COVID are?
Sure, and you know, it's interesting because it varies. I mean, I've had folks that they thought they had allergies and a sinus infection turned out to be COVID positive. We've had folks with a headache that was lingering, that was unexplained, that turned out to be COVID positive. So the challenge that we have is that they're very similar, and we're going into flu season, and you know, we've seen a lot of rhinovirus over the summer as well. And so the answer that I give everyone is, if you're sick or feel different than your normal healthy self, get checked out, because it may or may not be COVID, but at the very least you can rule it out. Some of the challenges that we're seeing right now as well is, you know, we may see one person in the family test positive for COVID, the other family members become symptomatic, but they may or may not get checked out because they feel fine. And so the concern I have there is making sure that they get into care properly and earlier so that they don't get into trouble. But the symptoms are very similar, and that's the challenge that we have. And so I think the best thing, and this is why we were working so much, so closely with our hospitals, our long-term care facilities, and then our primary care providers, is to help them reopen as safely as they can, because they know all of our medical history. I go see my doctor, I probably wouldn't even have to say a word, and he can probably figure out where I'm at as far as in my health, because I've seen him since I was 18 years old. So the history is so important, and the trust that you build with your medical provider is powerful. And so lots of doctors are telling me that for a long time they didn't have patients that were COVID positive, and then in July they saw a very significant uptick in the amount of patients that they had. And they've told me now that that's starting to come back down again, which is a good thing. But the symptoms are basically the same as what we had before. You know, the muscle ache, gastrointestinal issues, you know, fever is a big component, but some folks may not have fever, and have just, sinus issues and things like that, respiratory, shortness of breath, cough, all those things. We had in a daycare where runny nose typically is not, or was not considered a symptom, where the kids had runny nose and were tested and they were COVID positive. So the bottom line is that if there's a change in your health condition, it's probably best to get checked out. That's a long answer to a short question.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
good.
Yeah.
Have a question, Debbie?
No.
Citizens can ask questions?
No, sir, you had your time.
glad to talk to you
The
offline.
citizen comment period is over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll be outside.
Transparent, thank
I'll talk to you outside. Yeah, we'll catch up.
Debbie?
Yes, ma'am.
Have we seen a marked difference between Charlotte County, which did the resolution, and Punta Gorda, where we had the ordinance? Because, my view is that a lot of the big box stores are requiring it.
Yep.
It's not just the little guys in Punta Gorda that
Sure.
are making people do this. It's the big guys too. So has there been like this
So
big
when
difference?
the large retailers, I've always said that when we get community buy-in on these different types of measures to help protect each other through employers and mass retailers and our faith-based organizations, that's when we're going to see a significant difference in the cases, right? And then the challenge is to get those folks opening up safely, right? Because clearly there's an economic and psychological impact to all of this stuff. What I'll do is let me go to the dashboard, and then I'll pull out the filter by zip code, and then we'll just walk through what the cases look like for the entire county, since I just showed you specific to Punta Gorda now, if that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to back out the 50 and 55 zip codes, and then we'll just go back. And then so you can see, let me make this larger for everybody else to be able to see. So clearly there's more cases that are not Punta Gorda associated when, when we're looking at 21 cases, and then Punta Gorda had 1 or 2. So majority of the cases were outside the city limits.
Okay.
The majority of the population is outside the city limits, so there's some correlation there, but it did have an effect. You can clearly see that there's a lot more cases occurring countywide than there are specific to the city of Punta Gorda. Similar type of areas here, so you had the holiday weekend, schools reopening, so instead of a downward trend, you had a little bit of a flattening, and then you had a pretty significant run of single-digit days, which are great, and then we had a couple of days where we had a few spikes, where we have some clusters associated not only with school, but also with some businesses and things like that.
Are these numbers based on their residence address?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, these are Charlotte County residents.
I mean, also, we can't forget we're 1/10 of the population, so
Yeah.
the numbers are going to correlate if you
Yeah.
look at that.
Exactly right.
But, most of the time, I think when I visit a store, and in Charlotte County, not Punta Gorda, I still see, wear a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's like when I went to Pioneer Pizza to pick up something, they are technically in Charlotte County, not Punta Gorda, even though they're surrounded by Punta Gorda. They even had a sign that says wear a mask. How much difference do you notice in community behaviors?
So I
Based
think-
on this? I think it's similar to what Debbie was, talking about.
I think the ordinance and a resolution sends the message like this is really important, and if you can wear a mask, please try to. And clearly, there's medical reasons why people can't wear masks, but I always say that I wear this mask for those who can't, right? And so that's really what we're trying to do, is protect our most vulnerable. I have seen where there are a lot more people taking protective measures, whether it's distancing or, protective measures like this. But what I'm also seeing is more people are sensitive to their health. So if they're sick, they're staying home or not going out into stores and things like that, which is huge. The retailers, another big reason why they move forward with all these protective measures is because they needed to maintain their workforce in order to stay open. And so you can imagine cashiers and folks like that are seeing a stream of people constantly. And so just based on sheer statistics, there's going to be somebody that's potentially COVID positive going through their lane. And so for all of those reasons, in order to keep those businesses open is where those protective measures really came into play. We distributed 100 and something thousand masks out to the community, and our private partners through United Way and Healthy Start, Healthy Families, all those folks received masks as well, our nursing homes. So it's not that there's a shortage or availability of masks, it's just a matter of, you know, if you're able to wear one, then please do so, or take other protective measures, social distance and all the other stuff. And so, and I really just don't want to turn this into a civil liberties conversation or anything like that. I think we all agree that whatever we can do to kind of make this go away as soon as possible, we agree with. So, my team has not had a day off since February. So, they're doing a great job, and it's just the answer is when we get a medical intervention like a vaccine that's effective and safe, and we can move forward with that to protect our most vulnerable, or other medical interventions other than a vaccine, so that we can make sure that we can mitigate the impacts of getting infected with COVID.
More questions? Comments?
Again, thank you for being the voice of reason and for your calm demeanor through all of this craziness. I've watched numerous presentations you've made to the county commissioners and other groups, and you're what we need at this point in time. It's not an easy decision for any government body to make, and we don't take it lightly. And we're not doing anything to try to personally harm anyone. And, you know, it's a very difficult decision on a good day for anybody to have to make these choices. But we always try to do this with the best interest of our residents.
Absolutely.
And, so if you were a city council member on this dais,
Okay.
what would your position
Sure.
be?
So my position on it is what I said before, just like we've been saying since January, protective measures help, right? They're not perfect, but they help. I think it really is, what comes down to the conversation that I've seen is that people are really tired of being told what to do and being mandated to do it. I think with lots of really good education and a resolution, it could have the same support. But it's really, I think it's whatever the comfort level of the board is, as far as, because there's a lot of administrative processes that go behind the scenes with a mandate versus a resolution. So, I haven't talked to council as far as that piece of it, but I think that, supporting a mask moving forward in whatever form that is a good thing. I guess council wants to speak up. No, that's okay. That's really it. I mean, I'm supportive of whatever helps slow the spread right now. I think that's the biggest thing. I think when we get into the conversation of whether or not it's a mandate or a resolution, as long as we get there and our community, we can help each other with mutual respect, I think that's a good thing.
David?
Yes, Mayor, if I might, it's important for me to clarify what the purpose of this resolution is. It's the ordinance that was adopted is a mandatory ordinance, and it's enforceable by the terms of the ordinance. The ordinance was going to sunset at a particular point in time, but in order to make it easier to extend the ordinance, the ordinance was adopted with a provision that said that the city council may extend the ordinance by way of resolution. And that's what's before you today. The resolution does not in any way diminish the mandatory requirements of the ordinance or its enforcement. So it's not going to be, and I think that may be what the confusion is.
Yeah.
It is not going to reduce the mandatory nature of the ordinance. The ordinance remains in full force and effect for an additional 30 days per the resolution. I would also want to point out that among the exceptions in the ordinance, which will remain mandatory, is the provision that the persons for whom a face covering would cause an impairment due to an existing health condition, or for whom compliance with the mandatory requirements imposed herein would conflict with the Americans with Disabilities Act, are excused from compliance with the mandatory requirement. But I also want to point out for clarification purposes that the ordinance allows not just the more or less close-fitting type of mask that I'm wearing now, but clearly expressly authorizes the use of those plexiglass face coverings that also cover the nose and mouth, but are clear for those that would prefer to have their expressions seen, and also a little less tight-fitting, which perhaps would allow for better breathing. So that ordinance will remain in effect if you adopt this resolution.
Can we change the ordinance and modify what's in our ordinance so that it's not a mandatory, but it, similar to what the county has, where we're really encouraging the use of masks?
I think you can do that, but it would require re-advertising and a different ordinance to be presented to you.
Okay, that's what I would be in favor of.
So if we could then possibly just extend the current ordinance until we can do that?
Well, you can adopt the resolution, which extends the current ordinance for 30 days. And in the meantime, we could have either an emergency ordinance, or there actually would be time to have an ordinance adopted through the regular adoption process that would change the mandatory nature of our current ordinance.
I mean, could we do an emergency one for the next meeting? Because I think that it would serve the community better that we harmonize with what the county's doing. I think that serves us better.
And yes, that is an option. You can adopt a replacement ordinance by way of emergency ordinance as well.
Today?
No.
No,
We still need to have adequate.
So we would do it at our next council meeting?
Yes.
Well, this ordinance expires, what, October 6th?
6th.
So that's within a day or so of the
It's
next,
the next day, the following day.
yeah. So
So,
if, maybe
but-
what we could do is we could extend this current ordinance until the next council meeting, rather than a 30-day extension, extend it to the next council meeting, and then,
Well,
ask for it.
If I might, and just as a suggestion, if it was the majority of the city council's position following the public hearing, whether it be a regular adoption ordinance or an emergency ordinance, to replace the existing emergency ordinance with something less mandatory, that ordinance would, in effect, and could, in express fashion, not only repeal the previous ordinance, but in effect would, out of necessity, repeal the emergency or the resolution that extended it. But if ultimately it was the determination of the majority of the commission following, council, following public hearing, to extend the existing ordinance through the full course of the 30 days, it would not be necessary to come back with another ordinance, another resolution under that circumstance. So I think you can accomplish your objection, your objective, if you wish to ultimately replace the existing ordinance with something that wasn't mandatory by adopting this resolution. But again, not presupposing what the outcome of your hearing is going to be with a replacement ordinance, without having the availability of the public comment to consider at the time of your consideration at that time.
You confused me.
Yeah.
You have really, you have just totally, what?
Well,
Yeah, like
so-
I zoned
all
out.
right,
I know, it's like, David, you know,
I'll try to not speak
we
too
have,
much.
we have an ordinance here that is a mandatory. I'm getting the sense from the council members that we would really,
We haven't heard from all the council members.
And
no,
let me,
I think we need to hear from all the council members on this, but I'm hearing from some council members that there's,
Mayor, could I make a comment before you continue with
Yes.
that? I think one of the things that, I'm not putting words in an attorney's mouth by any means, but I think one of the point that's being made is that even if you have a consensus today that you would like to move a different ordinance forward at the next meeting, you don't have the benefit of public comment yet, so you can't presuppose what the outcome of that is going to be. So you have to assume that that ordinance is, regardless of how it's presented, that it may or may not pass, so you need to extend something today until you get to that point. So that's part of it. Is that correct?
I thought that's what I said, but obviously the
You have to dumb it down a little bit sometimes.
So,
I said it through a black mask. You
well,
have
we've heard
every
from,
minute to that.
we've heard from Jaha and Lynn. Debbie,
I just hear from our, the people who are talking to me are saying that they appreciate the fact that they know when they go out in public in Punta Gorda, they are going to be protected. And they don't go to Port Charlotte to shop for that very reason. I was with a friend who said that she had stepped out from Bell's into the mall and she didn't see anybody wearing masks. She just turned around and went and got in her car. So I think we're jumping the gun. If you look at what has gone on in Europe, where they have eased restrictions, they are back to shutting down. And I'm afraid that if we turn this from a mandatory to a resolution like the county has, what's going to happen is people are going to think we're not serious about it anymore. They're not going to do it. And we're going to end up having to shut down. And that's what I don't want. I want our businesses to stay open. And I mean, look how many of the letters we got today were from businesses. I told you, I'm trying to spend a set amount of dollars every week in a Punta Gorda store, and when I'm in there, I'm talking to the business owner. They appreciate the fact that the sign on the door says Punta Gorda says you have to do it. And I really think we're jumping the gun. I mean, yes, it would be lovely not to have people mad at us that we've done this, but we took the step. We used the science, and I don't see why we're not using the science now. And I'm scared to death when I see what's going on in the UK and in Spain. That could be us in 6 months. And I just don't want to see it. And I'm willing to take the heat.
John?
A question first. If we were to do a resolution like Charlotte County, how does that impact, say, the big box stores and the big people that have done their own mandate? Or is their mandate sort of contingent on what we do?
So the big box retailers have already moved ahead anyway with mask requirements. You see Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, all those folks, they really have moved to that mask recommended if possible, even for their staff as well. So in the areas where I've seen resolutions in place, the businesses have used the resolution number as part of their signage, and we can certainly support that. So that they're standing behind the resolution rather than the mandate. So it could carry some weight. It's just really just a matter of what the pleasure is of the board and where we want to go with this. And I'd be happy to come back at the next meeting and present data as well, so you have fresh figures as well, whatever you need from me.
So let me suggest this, Mayor. If you adopt the resolution today, you maintain the status quo until the next city council meeting. If there's a consensus for us to prepare for your consideration at the next city council meeting, an emergency ordinance that modifies the ordinance that's presently in effect as a mandatory ordinance and convert it to a permissive ordinance, you would then have the opportunity to have the public comment that would be necessary to make a substantial change like that, and have the ability to adopt an ordinance at that time that would repeal the existing ordinance and by very nature, the resolution that extended it.
But we just listened to, I had a tally. We just listened to 33 people who said, extend it as it is, some even wanting us to go to the end of the year. I don't know why why do we have to have another public hearing? We're going to hear from the same 30-some people.
Well, if we were going to adopt any change to this ordinance, it would require by law a public hearing.
I've had a number of people, I've had a number of people tell me they're really ambivalent. And I've had, of people who personally talked to me, very few people that said they really wanted a mandatory ordinance, but they would support a resolution. That's personal communication that I've had. I realize we got emails, we've gotten a variety of emails. When I talked with the Chamber of Commerce, they said the businesses are kind of split. And they said that we're kind of, darned if you do and darned if you don't, as far as the business that they speak to are concerned.
I'm going to lose this one, but I stand by my comments.
Just, one thing, if we look at the numbers, we see actually that we're on par with the county. If you're looking at us being 1/10 of the population, but secondly, actually talking to businesses, especially restaurants, people have lost 50% of their business now. But again, in this regard, I think that our intentions behind this were to empower businesses so they felt confident that they'd be able to do what they need to do to protect their workers. And I think that we've achieved that, and I think that the county's resolution achieves the same measure. And I think that, again, harmonizing it will serve our community better.
Lynn?
I don't want my earlier comments to imply that I am in favor of going in a different direction necessarily, because I'm still favoring continuing this ordinance, because I think that our numbers prove that this is working. And I have talked, contrary to what your conversations have been, I have talked to probably 4 or 5 dozen people that live in my district who are all in support of a mandatory ordinance. So, and a lot of whom are immunocompromised for different reasons, have different health issues, and they totally supported the city council's decision 3 months ago. So I want to look at both sides of it, and I'm not saying that I will go one direction or the other necessarily. I want to think about it a little bit more, but I would be in favor of moving this forward for at least another 30 days at this time. And I will make a motion to that extent.
Nancy, I would say one thing, and that is that we've got to do more educating of our populace so that people are not being accosted in stores who are not wearing masks. And, I mean, that really distressed me. I don't, that's not the purpose of why we did this, was to make anybody a target. And I'm terribly sorry that that has happened. But, I think we can do a lot from our standpoint of educating the public about those. 'Cause, a lot of people think, oh, yeah, you've got a medical excuse, sure. Because at the beginning, a lot of people were using that as kind of a joke, is why they weren't. But I think now people are taking it seriously. But I would like to see us maybe put something in the weekly report about that is a valid excuse, and it is part of our ordinance for that reason.
That is a very good point.
Reiterate the exemptions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, reiterating that we try to accommodate all
And the fact that you can wear the clear
conditions.
shield eliminates the face covering thing, so.
Jaha?
One thing I think on the note of education, I think that's why it's important that we mirror what the county's doing, so there's not differentiation, because there is, we don't want to have a moralistic element in this. This really is just to protect people, and again, in this differentiation between the two, it can add to a situation where people are emboldened to be able to express, what they perceive, as their what they think should be. And I think that our job is really just to create the conditions so that people feel empowered to be able to make their rules in their establishments so they can protect their workers. And I think that doing the county, aligning with what they're doing, I think that's what creates the best conditions. I think the differentiation between the two leads to more harassment of our people.
I think the county should have followed us.
Yeah.
But there's more of them, so.
Okay, so we need to do something with the existing ordinance. John, did you want to say
Made
something?
a motion.
It seems like there's a little bit of ambivalence amongst us all. I think we want to get over with the COVID business, and our numbers seem to be going in the right direction. And I do know from a lot of comments that I get that people are taking advantage are not following the mandate, even in Punta Gorda, especially when you go to eating establishments or bars. They're just not following the rules now, and our numbers are still quite low. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't come back at the next meeting with a resolution to follow more of what Charlotte County has done. And our current resolution goes through October 6th, which is the same date as the next meeting?
Day
No, the
before.
14th.
The day after.
Or-
It expires the day before our next council meeting. So we have to do something so that.
We could then keep the resolution in place, but then have a new ordinance that looks at it again and gives probably a number of people, including myself, a little more time to think about all the ramifications. I am too very unhappy with people being challenged in stores or accosted by other
There's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor, and
With this motion, would it allow us, so we did this motion, at the next meeting, if we had the emergency one written, would we be able to repeal this?
Yes, absolutely. And just to clarify, I know Councilmember Miller did clarify it. It would require an adoption of another ordinance to repeal this ordinance, but that ordinance could be non-mandatory and would be more or less the same effect as a resolution. But it would require us to adopt an ordinance to repeal the mandatory ordinance. And we could do that as an emergency ordinance at the next city council meeting.
But I thought, what I heard you say, in order for us to adopt, if we were to repeal it, we had to have something to replace it, when in fact, we could just repeal it and do nothing.
Oh, yes, you can do that. You can do that. I
don't know if that's what we want to do, but I'm just saying.
No.
What I heard you say, and it's like, wait a minute, procedurally, I'm just saying.
What I was suggesting is that if it was the desire of the council to replace the existing mandatory requirements with a non-mandatory directive, that could be done by adopting an emergency ordinance at the next city council meeting. But in order to maintain the status quo until then, it would be necessary to adopt the resolution that's presently before you, which would then could be repealed with the adoption of a replacement ordinance.
And right now you have
a motion on the table.
on the floor.
We need a second.
Right.
I need a second on the existing motion, the existing resolution,
Correct.
To last how long?
30 days.
30 days? Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to approve the current resolution as it is stated, as we have had in place for the last 90 days, but it's going to be for 30 days. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So it moves this forward for at least the next 30 days.
And now you have discussion on.
Now we have a discussion, and I think what I'm hearing is we'd like to see something that could be, at least entertain this.
Yes, put for the next meeting.
Do you want to entertain this for the next meeting, or do you want to entertain this for the second meeting in October?
Next meeting.
I would say the next meeting. But if it can fit in, I know we have.
Next meeting is the 7th.
Yes.
Next meeting.
Depends on what else is on that agenda, because these agendas, this takes a long time when we have these discussions about.
I think this is important, especially if people are getting harassed. I think we need to address this.
Well, I'm sorry that anybody has to endure that. That's not a good practice at all. But the fact is, we are making a difference with the ordinance as it is right now, and our numbers are significantly lower than the county's numbers because of it. And so to that extent, I totally support keeping it in place. And like I say, everyone I've talked to totally supports it.
Our numbers actually aren't lower. If you divide by 10, they're the same, actually.
They're lower.
I'm going to defer to Joe Pepe to give an opinion. Do you feel that Punta Gorda's
Just close
numbers
my
are
laptop.
lower?
We're a percentage of the county. I think we correlate closely with when the county goes up, we'll see Punta Gorda increase as well. Where we have been successful is in our long-term care facilities, as well as the flattening of the spikes in Punta Gorda. The masks and other control measures that we talked about earlier are effective, so it is correlating with the county, but there are fewer cases. I would say that if it is a percentage less than the county, it'd be hard to really peel that out specifically. What would have happened if we didn't have any of these measures in place, our retailers didn't go to this, is you would see a spike because of an outbreak, but then that spike would continue to grow and sustain. So you'd see an overall tidal shift increase, and you didn't see that as a function of all of these these protective measures in place. So I'm not sure I answered your question.
Well,
So the resolution would then make it non-mandatory for servers in restaurants to wear them, and
Their business has their own rules. If their people are exposed, I would think they would protect their workers, and they do as they do now.
well, you would think, but they don't
No,
in
but our
Charlotte
rules,
County.
but Charlotte County, they are as well. I'm there a lot. People, businesses whose workers they feel are in danger, they protect their workers. That's a normal practice.
I've gotten comments from a lot of people that the restaurants there are not are not protecting their workers like ours are.
But I've seen with my own eyes, they do.
Is
It was a question.
Is it possible to include servers and people who are working with the public to continue with their mandate for a mask? And not have it have it up?
Howard?
Howard Koenig. The servers and restaurant workers and everything, that's covered by the governor's order.
Yeah.
So that's in place now. I've not heard that being repealed. So that's in place now. What you're trying to decide is, do you want to place on the next agenda an emergency ordinance to repeal the current one and put in something that's not mandatory?
I'm just asking who's included in the not mandatory. That's what my question was.
Yeah, but the governor's order talks about what restaurant folks have to.
So,
I would be in favor of us at least having a discussion on it.
We just
And having-
did.
So would you like me, now, did we decide whether we're going to do it at the next, I think that was a decision that was made. Would you like me to bring forward a draft ordinance as an emergency ordinance, which adopts pretty much verbatim what the county has adopted in a non-mandatory fashion for your consideration?
Yes.
I'd like to see it on the second October meeting and not the next one. And I say that because we have 3 meetings between now and when this 30-day extension expires. The 30-day extension will go to, from October 6th to November 6th, and we have a November 4th council meeting. So we have 3 meetings between now and then. And I would like to see, what the trend is statewide and where the governor is at. And 30 days from now is going to be a much better idea of that than 2 weeks from now. And I think it makes more sense to push it back to the second October meeting.
I agree.
I mean, if it would mean,
I can go along with that.
If we do that, then we can adopt it as a regular ordinance without having to go through the emergency procedures, which doesn't mean much for you. It just tells us how we are to do it.
Yeah.
And the preference would be to do it as an emergency, a non-emergency ordinance with adequate public hearing, so that you'll have the full benefit of public
Yeah,
comment when
I
you
think
do that. And then, again, was the consensus that I tried to draft it as consistent as possible with what the county has in place now?
yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, yes. That would give us time to take a look at this, and I agree with you. I'm so sorry that people have been accosted in whatever manner. It's uncalled for, but, I'm observing a lot of, I'll just say, interesting behaviors on a number of fronts at this particular point in time from people on a variety of issues. And so it's, I think that, we have here respect for each person, and I would ask our community to please respect each other. And don't assume that just because somebody is not wearing a mask, it's because they're trying to be bold. And just assume that someone may have some, there may be something, and that's what we need to do, is respect each other. So
you're asking for a non-emergency ordinance on the 21st to be reflective of what you just discussed for.
if it's not, David, can you clarify why it's non-emergency versus emergency?
Well, because there's adequate time to provide public notice for your adoption.
Thank you. I just wanted it for the public record.
Along with statistical update, and perhaps Dr. Pepe can return if he has nothing else to do.
I'm here, whatever you need. I'll be here as much as you need.
Let me, upon further consideration, a regular ordinance would require 2 readings. And if
So that
you-
still keeps us under this November 6th.
Yeah, I don't have the benefit of a calendar in front of me. So if we can still do 2 readings before this ordinance would expire, then we can adopt it as regular ordinance procedures.
Yeah, November 4th is our next meeting, our
24th
first
and
meeting.
November 4th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or 21st and November 4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need to put something in it for religious considerations?
R1 for
Are you asking for a legal opinion or policy?
I'm asking for your
For a
opinion.
legal opinion, the U.S. Supreme Court has indicated following the measures that were taken during the Spanish flu epidemic, that religious and other freedoms that are covered by the First Amendment have to take a back seat to the public health.
Okay.
And so, consistent with the provisions of the law, we do not have to have an exemption for religious purposes.
Was it possible to add one?
Yes, it is.
Are you going to tell us, though, that it would not be defensible in court?
No.
Okay.
So I can make a motion to add one to our existing, to this, what we just did.
Well, if you're asking us to draft an ordinance for your consideration that has an exemption for well, it would not be mandatory anyway, so there wouldn't be any need for
That's
it.
true.
Yeah.
We
but that
can't
was-
change
I
the
think
ordinance
what-
that's already in existence.
But I think what I'm hearing Jaha say, that if you wanted to add it to the list of why you weren't wearing a mask would be for religious.
No,
But
there wouldn't be, the next ordinance that you would consider to replace the existing ordinance would not have any exemptions because it would not be a mandatory
Okay.
requirement.
Gotcha,
Non-mandatory.
Okay.
gotcha.
Thank you.
Can we take 5?
What?
We take 5?
Yeah. Are we done with this topic then?
I think so.
Okay. Then we're going to take 5. It is 10:55. We'll reconvene at 11 o'clock. Thank you. We are. John Miller.
And your name is on the little sign. See how that works?
All right, council is back in session, and we will proceed with our public hearings. The first item on the agenda is an ordinance of the city of Punta Gorda. It's related to our Chapter 6 of our
Yes,
Code
this
of
is-
Ordinances.
Thank you. This is GA-08-2020, the first reading of an ordinance, which I'll read by title only. An ordinance of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, amending Chapter 6 of the Punta Gorda Code relating to the use of waterways, operation of vessels, construction within waterways, seawalls, and canal maintenance, rewriting and reorganizing substantial portions thereof, providing for conflict and severability, and providing an effective date. And let me just start off by saying that the city's paralegal, Mikhail Finkel, did an awesome job in helping me put this ordinance together. It was a lot of work, and she's certainly not appreciated for the effort, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware how much work went into bringing this ordinance before you today.
Thank you. We appreciate you, Mikhail.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
In more ways than one.
So we're still, good morning. I'm Mikhail Finkel, paralegal. This is finally the Chapter 6 rewrite that has been in the works actually for several years. If you'll recall, City Council held a workshop in November of 2019, and we dove deep into the text of this ordinance. So now it's back in ordinance in its final form for your consideration. I'll just go through a short presentation highlighting some of the changes and the reason for this rewrite. So the main purposes were to reorganize the chapter. If you recall, currently there's just over 30 sections in this chapter, and it can talk about construction items in one, then it will jump to boat regulations, and it was just all over the years, it got messy. So we also looked at, there were sections that were obsolete, including some statutes that no longer applied. We eliminated inconsistencies as far as one of the main ones, instead of talking about boats and vessels, everything now is a vessel, just cleaned up some of that language. We updated diagrams and all the references to state statutes or other regulatory citations. And then some issues that were faced by canal advisory committees when it came to their special permitting, and as well for building and public works engineering staff when they were permitting, approving permissible items. So again, it took a staff from a lot of different departments shown here. Once we came up with the rough draft, we took those to the Bernstone Isles and Punta Gorda Isles Canal Advisory Committees. We looked at it section by section over about just under a year time frame. We also sought input from our local marine contractors who are out there in the field every day and working with the public to install docks and lifts such. And then, as I mentioned, we held the council workshop and discussed this in November 19. So the entire chapter is now organized into 5 articles. There's general provisions, which deal with the use of the waterways in the city limits. Then we have construction, the seawall maintenance, seawall and canal maintenance program, and then the final 2 are the provisions that establish the Punta Gorda Isles and Punta Gorda Isles and Bernstone Isles Canal Maintenance Assessment Districts. So if you would like, I have them broke down by article. If you have questions dealing with each article, we can discuss them as we go, rather than keeping it to the end. I think that would be the easiest. So Article 1 now includes definitions. They were all brought to the front of the chapter. And then, as I said, we go into the authority for the city to regulate the waterways and other items such as how, the general use of the waterways. This includes things like where fishing is prohibited, it addresses liveaboard vessels, we talk about the speed zones, and then the statutory things such as boating under the influence, interference with navigation, and storage of vessels in the waterways. And then enforcement of those violations. Vice Mayor?
We talked about this when I had my briefing this week, but the definition for liveaboard vessel still does not sit right with me. I think it needs to be, the verbiage needs to be amended, because a liveaboard vessel is, in at least almost all of the cases that I know of in the city of Punta Gorda, anybody that's living aboard their vessel is living on a boat that is navigable and does have propulsion. It has to maintain their sanitation system, it has to maintain their anchor lights and their navigation lights, it has to be registered, has to be able to have air conditioning and other means of airflow through the cabins of their boats. So those boats are not, as defined in here, it says a residence that does not have an effective means of propulsion for safe navigation. And it also says used solely as a residence and not for navigation. That's not correct. That's not an accurate description of what a liveaboard is in our community. And I think that needs to be amended so that it accounts for the fact that almost all of the boats that I'm aware of that have people living aboard them in the city, whether they're in a marina or whether they're out on anchor or anywhere in our harbor waters, they're navigable boats in all cases.
Mayor, if I might. The Vice Mayor's comments are very well taken. Mikhail and I had discussions even up to this morning as to how we should properly address that. I think Mikhail will get into that a little bit, but I will say that we have addressed your comment that the definition of liveaboard vessel in the definition section as in the draft presented is taken from the Florida statutes, and our authority to regulate liveaboard vessels per se is preempted to the state, and therefore, if we were to adopt regulations affecting liveaboard vessels, that may be problematic. But understanding that what the city is trying to do is not of the same nature as what the state is regulating in terms of liveaboard vessels, we have addressed that, and the first step would be our recommendation to eliminate the definition of liveaboard vessels. And when we come to section 1.4, which also present in the present text of the draft, as well as the previous one, had the term liveaboard vessels in that, we're replacing that term of art with the word living aboard vessels, houseboats, and other watercraft. And Mikhail, you're gonna.
If you
Yeah.
look at the screen.
It's on your screen, that's
See
what
this?
we would, the amendment we would propose, because as you said, liveaboard vessel, the only time it's used in our code is in the new section 1-4, which is regulated already by chapter 26, section 8-6, and in that language mirrors this now. It talks about living aboard vessels. It doesn't talk about a liveaboard vessel.
Okay,
So-
can we add verbiage that says that the vessel must be in operating order? So that it clarifies that we don't want boats that are not navigable boats? In other words, if there's a fire at Lashley Marina and we've got to get those boats out of there because there's going to be a fire and boats are in danger, they have to be able to be operable to get them out of the marina for safety and security.
And our,
That's derelict vessels.
at,
Yeah.
and that,
Go ahead, Mikhail, I'm sorry.
But
in the
they're not-
marina, we have adopted special rules for our marina. And our marina actually requires that it be movable within 24 hours. So at our city-owned marina, that's already in rules that the CRA and the city has adopted.
Okay,
We
but
also
for
have,
that.
we also have requirements in this code, I believe, if not also in our land development regulations, that require the boats to be maintained in operable condition.
And when you get to, if, right now, we only have our marina and Fisherman's Village, living aboard would be allowed in another marina as permitted by city council. You would review an application, say if they came in and just wanted
You've also got-
houseboats that were not for navigation, that requires city council approval. So you could make items specific to that approval for that type of marina.
You've also
So-
got the Isles Yacht Club.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, and I think what you're also getting at is we don't want boats out in the harbor that are just become derelict boats that somebody's living on, and they're not operable, and they are,
But they're not necessarily declared derelict at this point. They're just not operable.
Right.
And we've had those, and Corporal
Yes.
Trufan can attest to this. We've had to get some of them out of the harbor because they were not operable. They didn't have their operating lights. They didn't have registrations, and on and on and on. These I'm talking about are, what we don't want to encourage anywhere in the city limits is a boat that is not operable. That's the bottom line. And there's a couple of different things throughout this document that we talked about when I was in my briefing, that, we don't want to encourage anybody to have a boat on a dock in the canal system either, that is not an operable boat, that is not in good working order. It reflects poorly on the city as a whole when those boats sit out there like that. And then that's under derelict boats. I know we can address that through derelict boats in the chapter 25A. But I'm just concerned that we didn't, I'm not sure that this change of verbiage and moving it to section 1.4 accurately answers my concern.
We'll take another look at it and make sure that if it's in another provision of our code, we bring it into here as well to make sure that it's covered in this code.
And if I could comment on that, I think your point's well taken, and we had substantial amount of discussion on just that definition. And in the definition section, what we're really looking at is how is that definition used in the document. So you could, just to be a little flippant, you could say that a derelict vessel was something that's blue with 2 wheels. You can define it however you want,
Yeah.
if that's how you're using it in the document. But to take that out and change the wording in the document addresses that issue. Then there's the issue, independent of that, of boats that don't work, which is now another thing, not necessarily just that wording, but boats that don't work is a separate issue.
but the boats that don't work, there are a lot of people who have boats that don't work because boats are boats. And so we don't want to get into that kind of a discussion.
No, I'm talking about the boats that are in complete
I mean,
disrepair.
our boat that we had didn't work for a while, and we finally had to have a lot of work done to get it operable.
Yeah.
So it was on the lift all the time.
I'm talking in specifics about a boat that I know of on the Rim Canal that's been sitting at the dock for over 20 years and has never moved. And it's a sailboat and doesn't have a mast, and it's never been washed or waxed or anything. And it's those kinds of things that I don't think we want to encourage. And I think that needs to be addressed somehow. And it's okay for it to be redundant if we have it in 2 different places, in my opinion, because I think that covers the bases to make sure people can't say that they didn't see it or they're not aware of it.
Do we know if the boat that you're talking about has a current registration?
Don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things that we do look at and can enforce if the boat is not currently registered. If they allow the boat to, and it is currently registered, and sometimes with a sailboat, the definition of whether it's.
Could be documented, too.
In Florida, you still have to have your boat registered even if it's documented.
Mm-mm.
I had a sailboat and I was cited for that, so you don't necessarily have to have numbers on the side of the boat if it's documented.
Oh,
but
okay,
you have to have that
yeah.
sticker you put on the.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway,
we'll look into
that's
that.
my 50 cents on that subject. I got a whole bunch of other ones.
We'll look into it.
And I showed on the screen, we do, as you mentioned, have the derelict vessels, and it includes a section of vessels at risk. Again, in that ordinance, we did a 72-hour, has to be able to propel itself within 72 hours. So I think if we add into here somewhere a reference to that chapter 25, which deals with the derelict and at risk, then it will be in both places.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other?
Let me suggest, if I might, maybe this is the place to put it in 1.1-4. how about something along the lines of derelict boats as defined and referred to that chapter may not be used for living aboard?
Something along those lines would be fine.
Okay.
Living aboard,
Living
which
aboard.
still
You're
does
up to
not
$1.
necessitate a definition for live aboard.
Correct.
Which is why we want to take that out.
Yes.
There was substantial
Or
discussion.
any boats that are liveaboards must be in operating condition, or something along that same line.
If you're living aboard a vessel.
Right.
Yeah. It must be fully operational or something along those lines.
As Howard would say, working on it.
Working on it. Hear that, Howard?
All right, the new Article 2 gets into the actual construction and waterways. Just some of the highlights. We did add, it's not mandatory, but we did add a special purpose survey so that if engineering and permitting staff need additional information where we run into issues with lot lines, vessel limitation lines, that we can request that a special purpose survey be required to help deal with those.
So I was asked by a resident who lives on the perimeter canal at Burnt Store Isles. In here somewhere, I know it talks about the 40-foot, it's 20 feet either side of the center line of the navigable channel needs to be reserved for the channel. The boat lifts are, 4-post boat lifts are being permitted, which encroach in that. And they're being permitted, and it's becoming a navigation hazard in that perimeter canal. So we can have it in the code. It's more of a procedural issue this resident brought up to me of us going on ahead, though, and permitting boat lifts to be installed. So they were wondering why we did not mandate eleverts instead of a boat lift.
That, I can't answer why we would mandate what they put in or use. The ordinance requires that no structure encroach the navigable channel.
Right.
And the structure would include the dock and the boat lift.
Yes, so I guess what I'm saying is it's not as much a disagreement with what is in here, in the new chapter 6. It's what is being implemented, so that making sure that our staff is aware that you can't permit a boat lift, or that whoever is permitting the boat lift, that they should not be permitting them in those narrow areas.
Do we know when that boat lift was permitted?
No, they're just saying in general that if you travel the perimeter canal, there are new helms that go up, and they'll go ahead and permit a boat lift, and.
Well.
And one of these.
This person who brought it up to me, they had to install an elevert because they're on that perimeter canal, and they were not allowed to encroach in the navigable channel, so they put in an elevert, and they wanted to know why more people weren't asked to use eleverts.
I think what, I kind of now remember a discussion with the committee on that. Staff was back years ago, there was an interpretation issue, and that's one of the things we cleared up. When they were permitting it, and it said that it could go out 10 feet, the dock, they'd do the dock, but then they would let the boat lift go out further. That is now clarified, and staff is aware, when it says the structure can only go out this far, it's all of it. So I think maybe that's, kind of goes along with that comment of where they were permitting something either farther out than they were supposed to, or I wasn't aware that was in the navigable channel, but that has now been clarified in here and with staff, that the structure includes the dock, the lift, everything, so that it cannot go past whatever the set limit is or into the navigable channel.
Okay.
So, yes.
And we actually have diagram 1 on page 28 where it says vessel and structure limitation lines, and it's clear that that can't encroach on the navigable channel.
Okay.
So that's one of the, I mean, as Mikhail said, they clarified that, made it a nice.
Okay, then the other question had to do with the elevert, then. The language says that they must have some means of indicating when the elevert is in the water, of where the end of the elevert is, and the resident was asking, how do I do that? What do I use? Is there, and I don't know if it's something that, because it's, how do you mark the end of the elevert?
Well, I think in talking with the committees, yes, that was an issue where folks would take their vessel off the elevert, they'd be using it, it'd kind of be down in the water, so in the tight areas, they couldn't see it. They talked about, was it like a PVC piping? Or, Gary Disher from
For the record,
Public
Gary
Works
Disher.
Engineer.
Some of our discussions came along that line of the people leaving those in the water, like Mikhail just said. There was talk of maybe having a crab pot or a float on a line that hangs there, so when the elevator's in the water, there's something visual above the water, and/or just mandating that if you take the boat off the lift, get the lift out of the water when you go about your fishing or when you're out on the water, then put the boat lift back in the water to retrieve your boat. And then the other was adding the reflective tape to the arms themselves, so if a boat is not on it and it's in the raised position at night, people with their spotlights will be able to spot the ends of those with that reflective tape. So
Yeah.
we didn't dictate exactly how to do it, but we want to, kind of give the option up to the homeowner or the dock installer, that something has to be done to allow that.
So is that something then that we could just, as a staff, provide some suggestions then, rather than have it in here?
Yeah.
To be helpful to the
They're
residents
the
who have an
ways-
elevate.
effective ways that might accomplish this.
Our waterfront owner's guide or something, we may be able to amend it or put a section in there so it's,
Okay,
gives them some ideas.
that would be helpful. Thanks.
The next issue that we dealt with is floating lifts, platforms, and docks. So currently in the city, we do not allow floating docks except for commercial purposes like we see at the marina. In our canal system, staff and the committees prefer the solid concrete docks and not to have a floating dock. However, we do have floating lifts, which are sometimes used for the smaller watercraft and for personal watercraft, canoes. There are limitations on how big that can be. We did not change those from what was currently in the code. It was a committee recommendation that we add what we are calling a floating platform, which would be something that floats next to your dock. You could get on and off a kayak that's in the water. They mentioned something about using the little platforms when cleaning the boats. They can float. So the difference between the flat platform and the lift is the platform would not house any sort of a vessel on it. The reason we make those distinctions is because floating lifts, whether it be for the little kayaks, do count towards your maximum boat lift count at your property. So, if you have less than 80 feet of seawall, you're only allowed to have one lift unless a special permit or something is granted. So that's why we made the distinction between the lift and the platform.
And there is also a statutory provision that authorizes and sort of preempts our prohibition, floating lifts within an authorized mooring area. So we could not deny someone who has an authorized mooring area at a dock from having a floating lift. We can regulate certain things from a design and building perspective, but cannot prohibit a floating lift by virtue of state statute.
I would like to see us add in definitions what a floating platform is, because we have floating lifts in the definition, but not floating platform. And on line 656 on page 13, I think we should also say and spell out clearly that floating docks are prohibited. because we're talking about floating lifts and platforms, but we should also mention that floating docks are prohibited.
Okay, actually, the next section, no, that you're on,
Oh, I'm sorry,
paragraph 10.
you
if
do have
look
it on the
at
next
11,
page.
Yes, we do.
That's the floating.
Well, perhaps that could that be all put in one item? Where it could say floating lifts, platforms, and docks, and then that be in, like, item F under number 10? Because it really all kind of is similarly stated. I think that makes more sense to group it together because they're three distinctly different things, but it's very confusing when you talk about floating docks versus floating lifts.
How about if we, I mean, would it make a difference if we made the paragraph 11, paragraph 10, and then make paragraph 10, paragraph 11, so that when you read down the code, you come to the prohibition first?
Yeah, and maybe number 11, if it becomes 10, should say floating docks, period, and then go on with the description.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because to number 10, as it is now, says floating lifts and platforms, and then the description. So I think if you do the same thing with floating docks, it more clearly defines what a floating dock is and that we don't allow them.
That'll work.
Okay. I'm not trying to be difficult, but these are things that people ask questions
Well,
about.
this has been around for a long time, so now we can get it right.
Yeah, yeah.
And the final major change in that section was we expanded the other waterways. So when these regulations were first adopted, our other waterways was basically the harbor, properties that would be developed on the harbor. As we start to annex, now we have some properties along Alligator Creek, so we had to put in some provisions for that. They basically mirror what's in our canal system. And offer the opportunity for special permits. Those special permits would come directly to city council because they're not in any canal district. Oh, I'm sorry, we weren't done with Article 2. The special permit notifications were amended. Typically, we notify properties within 200 feet of the entire property boundary. In some cases, that was notifying property owners across the street, weren't even on the same canal, that didn't even connect. So we've just amended that slightly. It will be, notices will only go to property owners on the same canal in that 200-foot boundary. For special permits that are heard by or approved, special permits will now be kind of like a special exception if it is not built within a two-year time frame. It will expire and they would have to come back because conditions do change. We had a couple that were out there for years that got approved, they didn't build, then they built to code, then the next person wanted the special permit, so we put the expiration. We've added non-conforming structures to help us deal with some of those, like the mayor said, where they may have been put in as non-conforming, even though they were properly permitted. If something were to happen to those, they would have to put it in back to the current code. And then also, we have a section now about docks in disrepair, so we can get some of those fixed or removed. We kind of discussed the markings of pilings. The major change there was the increase in the tape, the reflective tape on the pilings, and then, of course, requiring that the elevates or any other structures have some sort of marking for safety purposes. The final bullet was not in your packet, but we've had a lot of discussion and the community has been having some discussion of boat covers and mooring covers. Our last discussion with council, we showed a couple things, examples. We were asked to go back to the boards and the canal maintenance boards and committees for comment. We did take it back to them and they both recommended the same type, which we are calling the mooring cover. So the mooring cover here is defined as the piece of material fabric that is snug to the boat. The mooring cover assist that is included in this article is a two-arm system that would roll that cover from front to back or vice versa on the, over the vessel when in use. So I think we want to discuss this in more detail. So
Yeah, we
that's why I
definitely
added
do.
the bullet.
I do too.
We definitely do. Mikhail, on line 736 in the document, it specifies boat lift covers and canopies shall be prohibited. And then you go into the section on line 865, where you say boat lifts and mooring cover systems shall be maintained in an operable condition. Those are also prohibited right now, and that should be stipulated.
I'm sorry, what was this, the second?
Line number 865, section 2-2C. It says, "Boat lifts and mooring cover assist systems shall be maintained in an operable condition at all times," and it goes on. Those are not permitted right now.
Correct. And what is that? That was meaning boat lifts have to be repaired and mooring assist as two different devices. So we should rework that wording, yes, because.
That should be put in the same area where we're talking about boat dock covers and all of that kind of stuff. Boat lift covers, and it should be kind of in separate line
In
items.
two sections, so the line you were talking about, the 736, and then also, that's in, that is dealing with other waterways. It's also, again, prior to that, when we're talking about canal maintenance. So that statement is made twice about the boat lift covers and canopies being prohibited altogether.
Okay, but there's no place in this document that says mooring cover assist systems are prohibited, and currently they are prohibited. And I think that needs to be spelled out.
That they're allowed.
No, they're not allowed.
They're not allowed. We voted them not.
No, we talked about
We
that.
talked about it, and we did not approve that.
We didn't approve it.
It needs to be in this document that they are prohibited, and so till such time as this council votes otherwise.
No, we
I
talked
don't
about
remember
that.
that, no.
We did not vote that we
Talked
prohibited
about
it.
it, but we never took a vote on anything.
We
The
did
gentleman
not
gave the
want,
presentation.
yeah, we did, what I
And we
remember
did-
us talking about is we didn't want these covers that are attached to the boat.
We didn't approve anything, is my point, so
We
they're
didn't.
currently still
We
prohibited.
said the only thing we would consider was one that covered the boat but did not protrude above or was attached to the
But that's-
top of the.
But that's what these
dock.
are. They're mooring cover assist systems. We don't have those allowable right now. And there's nowhere in this document that says that. They're currently prohibited.
Correct. The current code was silent to it, so this would have been, in this ordinance, you would be approving that. So if you wish not to approve that,
I wish not to approve that.
I wish to
I thought we
approve.
already did it.
No, we didn't.
We didn't vote
I
on
wish
it. We
to
just
approve.
said it needed
This
further
is the
discussion.
example on the screen.
Yeah, we
Right.
saw it.
that would be approved. However, under the current language, items such as this would not be permissible. Whoa.
That's just a cover.
No, it's attached to the.
It's attached to the
See,
boat
there's
lift.
a structure.
See the
right here
structure?
That stays permitted all the time, so that would not be permitted under the current language, nor would something of this manner. So only the first,
Oh, good.
this is
Howard.
the only type of, that is what we would consider a mooring assist system.
No, the problem with this one was when the thing is up because you've taken the boat out, you've got this bar protruding underwater. And that was, I was just positive we did not approve that.
And the requirement in here requires it to be below the seawall cap. So they would have to lower their dock.
And this has been through both Canal Advisory
Correct, they
Committees.
both recommended the language that we included.
My point is, it's still not approved, and it needs to be stipulated that they're currently prohibited.
I think,
Well-
I'm in favor of it.
So, first of all, it became a challenge to be able to accurately define the difference between what you would have structurally above the boat to cover the boat from the sun and something that would be simply a modification, simple modification of a non-structural canvas or fabric covering. And what Mikhail was showing was what was last presented to the city council as something that might be acceptable. So we came up with a definition for it, we put it in this code, and now is the opportunity either to allow for that, what we call the mooring cover assist system, which in the definition indicates that when not being used to cover a vessel, all components of the system shall be positioned at or below the top of the seawall. Those things that are structural, that are more or less permanent in nature, that provide shade over the boat lift, or that would be something like a shower curtain on some sort of rail that you could pull, which was some of the examples that we presented at the workshop. Those are prohibited. Now, you can direct us to allow those, you can direct us to continue to prohibit those, you can direct us to allow for that mooring cover assist that Mikhail was just showing you, or you can direct us to outlaw that altogether. We put it in here for your consideration. Apparently, it was approved by the boards, but you're the final say on this matter. And so in the code that's presently before you, by definition, this form of mooring cover assist system would be permissible.
I think to make us an age-friendly community, that this is a common sense solution, and it is not attached, it's not a boat lift cover, it doesn't.
Of course, I mean, like, that's for me, he demonstrated that, I mean, you have to be very able-bodied to do otherwise. I think this is a very good accommodation we should have for our community.
I don't like them.
That's like saying you should make the driver's test vision screen three-dimensional so everybody can see it, because then they can drive. If you can't put your boat cover on your boat, should you be boating?
It's not that extreme. I think that people have mobility issues. What if someone's in a wheelchair and they boat? This allows them to be able to do it. I think we're just being age-friendly. I think this is a reasonable thing.
I don't think they're safe.
I mean, they wouldn't be allowed to be made, I would say, if they weren't safe.
I certainly would be in favor of this kind of a covering. I think there are situations that people just can't get to an easy place to, if you had to walk out to the front of your boat, even as this one's sitting here, and try to drape that over and then carry it all the way back, and you don't have you don't see where the walk-off is here, but it's almost impossible to put a cover on that kind of boat without this kind of thing.
The person who brought this forward originally is an 83-year-old gentleman that lives in Burnt Star Isles, and is just saying he's having difficulty with his mooring cover, and would just like to be able to have something that would facilitate that.
So does he have one already then? It's already in the record?
No, he does not. He's ready to permit one, but he can't get one.
Why?
Because we don't approve it. It's not.
I
it's
thought
not
you
allowed.
just said we did.
No, we didn't.
No, we
Okay,
haven't done
okay, I
anything.
No,
misunderstood.
he brought the idea forward because he would like one to help him. He's 83 years old, and he would like one to help him. He's a very able-bodied person, just is a little bit difficult for him. So, do we need a motion to be able to approve this, or we just need to come to consensus that?
A consensus would be helpful.
I'm in favor.
I am too.
I would have liked to have had more time to think about it. I thought we'd already said no.
So we have three people, 3 out of,
Okay, take it.
okay.
So the consensus is to leave it in.
Consensus is to leave it in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that concludes Article 2.
Just as a comment, when you talk about special permits, when you look at boat lift covers and canopies that say they're prohibited, they're not subject to special permits.
Correct, and I apologize, I didn't have that. That was another amendment that staff would propose.
So the one with the flat cover, Michelle, I'm sorry, would that be legal too then, as long as you were below the seawall?
No. The only kind is where it rolls from front to back. So it can't be posts that would stay there all the time, even if they went up and down it, that would not be permitted, nor would the swinging structure. It's only
Okay.
something with two arms that rolls back to front. As currently, as it's currently written. In construction and waterways, for the special permits, we had a typographical error in the subsections in which are eligible for special permit. You can see those are clarified here. It's C 1 through 6, and then D 1 through 6. And then we've also added the short phrase, "and not otherwise prohibited in this chapter." Therefore, it clarifies any issue if someone came in and said, "I want to get a special permit for a boat lift cover." We all know you can't. It's strictly prohibited. So staff will make that change if that's okay by the council. Article 3 is bringing together all of the provisions relating to seawall and canal maintenance. This language was really tightened up, so in one paragraph or one section, it is clear as to what the property owner's responsibilities are, both in keeping up their property and when undergoing seawall repairs or maintenance, who's responsible for what.
Excuse me one second. Can we just back up real quick on Section 2?
Sure.
Section 2.2-3, item B, it states that all unattached pilings located in waterways more than 15 feet waterward of seawalls or the mean high water mark of shorelines shall be painted with a durable white coating and wrapped with white reflective tape. And it goes on and on. We talked about this on Monday, but there are a lot of dolphin pilings in the PGI canal system that are not painted white. They do not have reflective tape on them, and it's extremely hazardous to navigate in the canals at night to get around them. And I can tell you, having gone in the boat parade probably 15 or 16 times since I've lived here, it is extremely hazardous when you're coming down a channel at night and you've got lights on your boat, and I'm not just talking about Christmas lights, but I'm talking about any lights on your boat, and you're driving into the black abyss that is the mangroves on the rim canal. You cannot see at the end of the channel when you're turning onto the rim canal that these dolphin pilings are out there, and they're not clearly marked. And how are we going to enforce that? We're going to have to physically go out there and paint those for these people, because in many cases, they're docks that don't even have boats on them. But the dolphin pilings have been there for the duration, and they're sitting out there. And I talked to 4 people yesterday that said, "Oh, that's interesting, because I have dolphin pilings out there and mine aren't painted. The paint's all worn off."
Can you explain what a dolphin piling
Sure.
is?
Okay, so you have pilings right on the dock that the boat affixes to when you dock your boat.
Right.
But people who have wider beam boats sometimes put dolphin pilings 15 feet out from the seawall so that you can suspend your boat with dock lines, and it keeps the boat from ramming up against the dock. And there's a lot of people that have dolphin pilings. And those dolphin pilings must also be maintained just like the dock pilings on the dock, but they're not. And in many cases, there's people, you can't even get to them unless you have a boat of some kind to get out there to paint them. And I don't know how we enforce that. And I mean, Corporal Trufan, maybe you can allude to that from being out on the water. I don't know how much you've experienced that, but I can tell you from being in the boat parades, it's a real problem.
What would be the difference between dolphin pilings and unattached pilings?
Well, that's the same thing.
Same thing.
They're unattached to a dock.
Right, so I mean, I would have thought that this would have
What line are
required.
you referring to on?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's on line 884.
Right.
And I can tell you this provision, except for the width of the tape, is already in our code. So we will have to.
My concern
do
is
the
in how do we enforce that, and how do we monitor it so that we don't have an incident? Because I can tell you, it's really, really tough to see at night. When there's no moon out especially, it's very difficult to maneuver those canals at night.
Do we want?
Well, we should be able to enforce it the way we enforce any other dock-related violation.
Oh, we don't. That's my,
Well,
that's
then-
my concern.
Then that would, I don't think amending this ordinance would change that situation. I think from an administrative point of view, if it's a problem of noncompliance, we need to step up our enforcement of this particular provision of the ordinance.
Do we need to get a vote for the code compliance? I mean, really, code compliance doesn't go out, so that, who's going to see this? Other than if, you know,
I'm putting it in my weekly Q&A because that is something that I know for a fact, there's a ton of people that don't keep their dolphin pilings painted.
do we want to add the word unattached pilings, or in parens, dolphin pilings?
Yeah, I
so
think
that
maybe
people,
that would clarify it for a lot of people.
You know,
I understood what pilings are. I had not heard the term golf.
I had not either, so I think if we were to put in parentheses or something behind.
That's
so that
probably a good idea.
That way then it's,
And there's also two components to that. One is keeping it painted white, and one is having it wrapped with white reflective tape. So there's two components, and of course,
Right.
if you're repainting and the white reflective tape's there, then that becomes an issue.
and I have been out when it's really dark on the Rim Canal and you're trying to see ahead, it's really tough.
Yeah.
I wish we could put in our ordinance that the intercoastal marks that aren't lit with lights also be
Yeah.
Picky.
Clean so you could see.
so you can see them at night, correct, yeah. All right, well, we can certainly add the word dolphin next to unattached, so it's clear it includes those, different types of pilings. If anybody thinks that one's not included in the other, that's fine. We still have the problem of enforcement, which is a problem we have with a lot of the provisions that are in this code that sometimes are not enforceable unless you're out on a boat to see it, so.
And you do have many that are painted white that do not have the tape around them.
And there's a reason for having both the reflective tape and the white.
Right.
The reflective tape may not be that visible during the day, but the white is.
Right.
And the reflective tape certainly is visible at night, so that's why the state regulations require both.
We're putting a lot of responsibility on Corporal Trufant.
Well, I mean, I think that's a really important safety thing, and maybe at some point we could have some kind of a group volunteer to go out and paint the poles for those who don't have boats out there anymore. I mean, that could be a totally different discussion for another day, but I mean, that certainly is a problem, and it's something that I'm always concerned about when I'm out there at night.
Or maybe you should get the manager a boat and just,
Okay.
we can go out on the weekends and paint.
You and Don
There
can
you
go out
go.
on my boat.
Since your family's not here yet, Greg, why,
Right.
it gives you something to do, right? Go
Paint
paint.
post. Just like Uncle Barry can.
So these two slides, again, just highlight who's responsible for what on the properties. Again, not much change, but it's more clear now to the property owner as to who's responsible, or to anyone looking at the code.
And let me point out, if I could, one more thing, because this will come up. If I purchase a property that's got a boat lift on it, but I'm not a boater, so I don't use it, and I don't bother maintaining whatever. If it falls into disrepair, it's still the responsibility of the property owner, even if they don't use it, to fix it. I would not have any problem, at least under the ordinance, if someone had a dolphin piling that didn't meet the requirements of the code, that it be painted and wrapped, to cite them for a violation for not maintaining their piling in a way that's consistent with the code. If they don't want to maintain it, don't want to be responsible for it, the code enforcement answer would be then they should remove it so it doesn't present a possible navigation hazard.
And again, it's enforcement. That's the real problem with the
Understood.
whole thing.
Yep. I'm sure Greg will come before you for an appropriation for.
Right.
Are there any other questions on the seawall or canal maintenance? Provisions? Okay. So the new numbered articles 4 and 5 are just the provisions that establish the canal maintenance assessment districts. Very minimal grammatical changes to both of those, just the tense. And then for Punta Gorda Isles, we did add and this would be your approval of bringing the Buckley's Pass additional harbor access into the canal maintenance district. So that legal description was added to the property that's within the area. And that would be the end of the site.
Thank you. That was a really difficult document to draft, and I appreciate all the time you put into it.
Yeah, and the years.
Mikhail's done a lot of work on that.
Yeah.
So one more reading and we'll have this.
So,
Not
Thank
to
you.
minimize the work.
Being someone else's lifetime.
all right, well, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please come to the podium and you have 3 minutes. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please come to the podium and you have 3 minutes. Last call.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I'm still having a problem with the electric boat cover thing.
I'll make a motion to adopt. Is that what we do for this one?
Approve it
yes.
as amended.
Approve as amended.
Yes.
There's been a motion to have it approved as amended. Is there a second?
I thought this was the first reading.
It is. We have to approve it, though. We have to vote.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
And then at the second reading, you'll have the opportunity to look at the language that we discussed to make sure it's consistent with what you believed was the discussion at the city council at first reading.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to the next item. Yay.
Thank you.
We have some people who've been waiting. I should have actually moved their item up, asked to move their item up in the agenda. My apologies. We have a quasi judicial public hearing.
This is V-01-2020, which is a quasi judicial public hearing. So anyone that's going to be providing any evidence or testimony on this matter, please rise to be sworn. I guess I'll do it. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
When you come to the podium, please state your name and indicate that you have been sworn. So this is V-01-2020, a request by Ruth Hoffer as manager of Jamaica Loft LLC, property owner pursuant to Chapter 26, Section 16.10 Punta Gorda Code, to allow a minimum lot width of 75 feet instead of 80 feet as required per Chapter 26, Section 3.4 G5 Punta Gorda Code for a property zoned general single-family residential. The address is 2010 Jamaica Way, Charlotte County, Florida.
Good morning, still. Lisa Hannon, zoning official. I have been sworn. I would like to enter the staff report into the record in its entirety by reference. So I'll give a little bit of background information regarding the request. The need for a variance for 2010 Jamaica Way came about from a phone call from the realtor selling the property. The realtor noticed that on the Charlotte County GIS that the lot was shown at 75 feet in width instead of 80 feet in width, which is the normal and also required by the land development regulations. After the call from the realtor, staff began researching the property and the previous development sales and warranty deeds for the property. It was discovered that between 1990 and 1997, lots 10 and 11 were combined with a single-family structure that was constructed across both lots. In 2005, after Hurricane Charlie, that house was demolished. Somewhere between 2005 and 2007, lots 10 and 11 were split and sold. During the split and sale, 11 feet of lot 10 was deeded to lot 11, making the subject property only 75 feet in width instead of 80 feet in width, which is required by the code. The lot area still exceeds the required minimum. The required minimum is 9,600 square feet. This lot is approximately 10,400 square feet. So, going through the criteria where strict and literal interpretation creates an undue hardship, that it would make the lot unbuildable. The lot property was purchased in 2005. The lot was already split, and there was no lot split application through the city. So the lot split was approved by Charlotte County without the review and approval of the city of Punta Gorda, which happened back in the day. We have a little better relationship with the Charlotte County Property Appraiser's Office now, so we have a lot split application. It's a simple lot split application that property owners submit to the city with 2 surveys, and we can review it for consistency and concurrency to make sure that we are not creating any non-conforming lots. They take that letter of approval now to the property appraiser's office before the lot split is done, or we hope they do a lot of times. We're trying to work on that. In the lot split and deeding of the 11 feet of lot 10 to lot 11 makes the subject property 2010 Jamaica Way unbuildable per the city code, therefore the variance is required. So the city's lot split application, like I said, ensures compliance with the lot width and overall lot size. Staff has discovered other lot splits which have been approved by the county but not reviewed by the city. I can't tell you how many. They are usually conforming. We've had just a few that have been non-conforming, and we go back to the property owner and tell them it's an illegal lot split, and they rectify the situation. So the hardship could actually be shared by other property owners, but not yet discovered. Another criteria that for variance approval is that the variance is not injurious or incompatible with contiguous uses. It is a vacant single-family property. It's adjacent to existing single-family structures, and the variance would permit the lot to be developed as a single-family residence. The current property owner purchased the property in good faith and that it was buildable. And while it was shown on the warranty deed that 11 feet was deeded to lot 11, the property owner could not know that taking only 11 feet would deem the property unbuildable by the city code. So the conditions not created by the person presently having an interest, that is true. The folks who purchased, or the company who purchased both lots, it was already split and the 11 feet deeded to lot 11 at the time that they purchased it. The lots were split prior to the sale to the current owner. It does not involve a prohibited use. The lot is zoned general single family. Adjacent parcels have been developed with single family residential structures. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan, future land use, goal 1.1. And in our conclusions, the lot width is non-conforming just due to the width. It was split with no review or approval by the city, done by previous owners. The request is for the lot width only, not affecting any setbacks for any future construction. And a special note under the Special Residential Overlay District under Chapter 26, the Land Development Regulations for Punta Gorda Isles, Burnt Store Isles, Burnt Store Meadows, certain areas, certain lot block and sections have certain square footage requirements. This is the first time I've ever come across this in reviewing plans, that this lot falls within Section 10, Block 90, within lots 1 through 39. It has to have a minimum of 2,000 square feet under air living to be constructed. It's part of our land development regulations under the Special Residential Overlay District. And based on the criteria and all the recommendations, we recommend approval of the request.
Any questions for Lisa? So what you're saying is that you have tried to work with the property appraiser's office so that our
For
city
future, yes.
staff in the future it's part of the process?
It's part of the process. There's nothing, I don't believe, that requires them to do it, but I spoke with the city attorney when we were discussing this, and it's our recommendation that we may move forward with an amendment to our code or to the application, that any lot split approval get recorded with that property, recorded in the public records of Charlotte County as part of the application process. So therefore, when somebody buys or sells, that it's recorded that this was originally this and it was split to whatever.
Well, and also that we would bring before you a proposal to provide into our code the requirement that anyone that is going to split their lot needs to get city approval, at least administrative approval, which would then be recorded. The problem was that the city was bypassed because there was no requirement at the time for the city to approve that. And it could be a no-fee review or what have you. Technically speaking, our code, I'm fairly certain, even at the time of the split, prohibited the creation of a non-conforming lot.
Yes.
But unless we were aware of it, there was no way to enforce it. And technically speaking, that creation of the non-conforming lot was, they call it void ab initio. In other words, it's not legally effective, and that not only would you have the property owner who was innocent purchasing the vacant lot be subject to a hardship, but we would then tell the owner of the lot that's bigger that their bigger lot is illegal, and I think, there's a house on it, and they would be coming back for a variance probably as well. So the granting of the variance under this circumstance is probably the best way to resolve this problem, but to avoid future problems, we would like to have you consider at some future time amending the ordinance so that we be aware and approve a split, at least administratively, before that goes forward.
Okay.
And not withhold unreasonably approval of same.
Correct.
I don't.
But it's
oh,
still,
this is a
a
hearing.
public hearing, so,
Right.
you may hear objections.
Yeah.
Do we want to hear from the applicant? Does the applicant want to provide any testimony?
My name is Carla Nix. I'm a real estate agent here in town. I have been sworn. This has been an interesting day, I'll say, so I'm glad to be at the end. Basically, long story short, we are appreciative of the process and the city's involvement in helping us get to this point. This is a lovely lot meant for a single-family home to complete the street, and we have ready, willing, and able buyers for this lot pending the approved variance. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
I have no questions.
I have no questions either.
Great, thank you.
It's pretty straightforward, so.
Exactly, thankfully.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to provide testimony, please come to the podium and you have 3 minutes. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to come to the podium and provide comments, please do so and you have 3 minutes. Last call.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
I have absolutely no problem with this request. I'll move approval of V-01-2020.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve V-01-2020. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Now, do we have a second reading on that, David,
No,
in 2 weeks?
Nope.
Nope, we're done.
yeah.
Cool. All
Yay.
right. Okay, moving on, we have 2 second readings of ordinances.
Yes, and the first is GA-09-2020, second reading of an ordinance, which will read by title only. An ordinance of the City of Punta Gorda, amending the City of Punta Gorda firefighters retirement system as adopted by ordinance 879-87, and as subsequently amended, is hereby further amended to provide for compliance with Chapter 2019-21 Laws of Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Any discussion? I'll take a motion.
Move approval of GA-09-2020.
Second. There's been a motion in 2 seconds for GA-09-2020. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next is GA-11-2020, the second reading of an ordinance, which I'll read by title only. An ordinance of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, amending Punta Gorda Code Chapter 10, Yard Waste and Solid Waste, Article Roman numeral 2, Solid Waste, adding Section 10-11, increasing the monthly fee for removal and disposal of solid waste and curbside recycling services, providing for conflict and severability, and providing an effective date.
Any discussion on this item?
Move approval of GA-11-2020.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve GA-11-2020. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. All right, so we can move right into our consent agenda if you're all okay with that. Anyone wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Nope.
Anyone wishing to provide testimony on the consent, well, no, we've already done that, so,
Correct.
comments, so.
Move approval of consent agenda.
Okay,
Second.
there's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, regular agenda, moving into the budget.
Good morning.
Take it away, Ann.
Good morning, Ann Hunnan, Procurement. I'm sorry, good afternoon. The first item is approval of change order number 1 to amendment number 4, which is the underground injection control closeout, well field management plan, and groundwater flow model. It's to Carollo Engineers of Sarasota, Florida. This relates to the ASR wells that are being converted to production wells. The change order, the original agreement, which was approved on April 15th, 2020 by City Council, it had some of the tasks to be determined because some tasks had to be performed in order to evaluate what needed to be performed next. So a tasks that were identified are the change order, which you see in front of you, which is tasks to finish the permit closeout to FDEP for the UIC permit closeout and to perform step 2 of the well field management plan. That upon your approval, the purchase order will be issued for the 2020 fiscal services. Then continuing on for the well field management plan will be continued to the next 2 fiscal years, which will be fiscal year 2021 and 2022. The remainder of tasks to be completed after these have been completed will be task 4, which will be groundwater flow model, which will be added as a change on future down the road. The not to exceed budget for fiscal year 2020 is $36,647.63. 2021 is $83,278.50. Fiscal year 22 is $121,057.50 for a total of $240,983.63. Staff is recommending approval of the contract change order 1 to amendment number 4 to Carollo Engineers of Sarasota, Florida, contingent on appropriation of funds for the fiscal year 2021 and 2022, and purchase order to be issued at that time. If you do have any questions, staff is here to answer any questions regarding the scope of work.
Any comments or questions? I know one resident asked me, why aren't these things just included in the overall plan in the first place that we have? And you kind of explained that in your explanation, but it seems to residents that we keep coming back with these additions like this. And so, it's more trying to put information in here that explains all this so that when residents read these items, that there's enough sufficient data or detail.
Howard Kunick, the RO plant was a construction project. And so between the design, the construction manager, and the actual construction, that is one project. Here now is the aftermath of the construction. That is why these items now are in place. So they're two different initiatives. There's definitely a difference between the two. That's why.
Okay.
Motion to approve the change order number 1 to amendment number 4 for the underground injection control closeout, wellfield management plan, and groundwater flow model to Carollo Engineers.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve change order number 1 to amendment number 4 for the underground injection to control closeout, wellfield management plan, and groundwater flow model to Carollo Engineers, Inc. of Sarasota, Florida. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously.
Budget item B, this one is related to the RO plant. This is amendment number 7 to Carollo Engineers from the master agreement to modify and renew permits and the mechanical integrity testing at the reverse osmosis water treatment plant. Again, this is a specific authorization from the master agreement that was approved on November 20th, 2019. And it included hourly rates to negotiate future specific authorizations. This proposal is to submit information to Southwest Florida Water Management District to modify the city's water use permit. Also to submit information to Florida Department of Environmental Protection to renew the city's underground injection control construction permit at the Shell Creek plant. And also to provide assistance to complete the mechanical integrity testing at the RO plant. Completion of the project of the timeframe for completion of this will be 240 days from the notice to proceed. This project will be fiscal year 2021 funds. So the staff is recommending approval of the amendment number 7 to Carollo Engineers, contingent upon the notice to proceed being issued on or before October 1st.
Any questions?
Motion to approve the award of amendment number 7 to Carollo Engineers with notice to proceed on or after October 1, 2020.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the award of amendment number 7 to Carollo Engineers. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously.
Item C of the agenda is the agreement award to Lago Consulting and Services LLC of Tampa for engineering services to conduct the South Lee County Watershed Hydrologic Modeling Project. This is a grant-funded project with the South Florida Water Management District and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. This is a project that the CHNEP requested a request for qualification for the engineering services to conduct the Watershed Hydrologic Modeling Project. This is for the departments to use as a tool for resource management of the watershed in South Lee County. Procurement did issue the solicitation to 683 vendors, 28 viewed them, and the city received 3 responses. The Evaluation and Selection Committee did evaluate the proposals and moved on to presentations. And they they chose Lago Consulting as the most qualified and responsible bidder for the project. Staff is recommending the award of this agreement to Lago Consulting and Services LLC of Tampa as the most qualified and responsible bidder. The project totals $199,249, and this is a not-to-exceed cost.
And this does not come out of our budget.
No, it does not. It is totally grant-funded by two separate
Important
agencies.
important for the community to understand.
Yes.
Although we could have some benefits from it.
We could.
Motion to approve the award of the agreement to Lago Consulting and Services of Tampa as the most qualified and responsible bidder with a not-to-exceed cost of $199,249.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to award the agreement to Lago Consulting and Services of LLC of Tampa, Florida for this project. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is an award of agreement to Marine Contracting Group.
Good afternoon, Julie Rogan-Sutter, Procurement for the record. I'm here to present the recommendation for award to Marine Contracting Group of Punta Gorda, Florida for construction seawall repairs at Ponce de Leon Park, Punta Gorda. The funds for this project will be coming from the General Construction Fund. These are proceeds from the sale of Fisherman's Village. Procurement issued an invitation to bid for construction seawall repairs, and solicitation notices were sent to 277 vendors. 77 viewed the solicitation, and we received 4 responses. The total lump sum cost for this project is $298,000 and $37 even. Staff is requesting council to approve additional funds for permits in the amount of $2,000, engineering contractual services for $5,000, and a contingency budget in the amount of $23,000, for a total project cost of $328,037 even. Contingency budgets will be utilized by the department for approved written change orders for unforeseen construction conflicts or errors on plans. The project timeline for the completion is 180 consecutive calendar days after issuance of a notice to proceed. Staff recommends award of this agreement to Marine Contracting Group of Punta Gorda, Florida, as being the lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Question?
Question for the city manager, one of you. Isn't this supposed to be paid for out of the special use fund? Because this says the general construction fund.
Yeah, this is part of the $700,000 that you saw in the special use fund. And Kristen, that at the end of the budget year, a lot of that's reallocated over.
So the funds are coming from special use fund. They're transferred to the general construction fund because all construction projects are done out of the general construction fund.
Okay, thank you.
An accounting thing, yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification. Debbie?
How long till they start working on this?
Well, if it's approved today, they're given 10 days for bonds and other documents, and then hopefully we could issue a PO by October 1, possibly 3rd, 6 months.
Estimated time for finish is what?
Beginning of April 2021.
Are we going to need to close down any part of Ponce Park while this goes on?
I believe that sections of the park will remain open, as that's part of the scope.
Okay.
Is that to mean that it will not affect anybody using the park?
I can't speak to the fact that some people may be affected if there's construction.
He's running.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
If I may, Mitchell Austin, Urban Design, a portion of the parking lot closest to the beach and sections of the beach, of course, will be closed to the public to facilitate the construction, because it will be construction from the land for the construction of the seawall. So portions of Ponce Park will be unusable by the public. The green space, the boat ramp, The boardwalks, fishing piers, all those areas of the park will remain open. It will not impact the pavilion or the Peace River Wildlife Center and that parking area.
But so like the beach area where people normally go to watch sunsets and all of that, we need to make sure that's very, very publicly documented and distributed information to the residents, because that park gets used a lot for sunsets especially. A lot.
But you said that they wouldn't start until next April?
No,
No, October.
Oh, it's going to be done by then?
Yeah.
Okay,
180 days from start, which is
gotcha.
early
Which I
October.
anticipate in the beginning of October.
So it's going to be construction during the peak season, so,
Yeah, that's,
yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Communication's going to be really important. So.
yeah. As soon as we know what timing is all about, we need to make sure that's in the weekly. And also social media everywhere. That's a very big deal.
Okay, so
I'll make a motion to approve the award of the agreement to Marine Contracting Group as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for total project cost of $328,037, and I would expressly ask that we try not to have to use contingency funds on all of these things, and expedite the PO on it.
Second.
there's been a motion and a second to what she said.
Well, I just, yeah.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, we will move into our new business. Thank you. Discussion regarding cameras in the Canal system.
Obviously, just as an intro, a council member received a citizen request for placement of a camera in the canal system to mainly address speeding vessels exceeding the minimum wake. It's been discussed on prior occasions. There's some information in your agenda packet that addresses that. And Councilmember Miller has some additional information that he would like to present for discussion purposes.
Okay. Someone going to bring up the PowerPoint? Now, this is a pilot project to see if the cameras can be of use for surveilling both boat wakes, as well as possibly being useful if there's an incident of some sort in the area that it can record. I'd like to show first where it will occur. This is Pompano Inlet. I don't know if you could use your thing there.
You said over.
Your thing?
It's your.
Greg, can you use your thing?
Right, so I got it right here. You said in this area, sir?
I don't see the.
No, you'd have to look at the screen up here for.
Which one's Pompano?
Which one's Pompano?
This is Pompano.
This one.
This is the one, and the positioning of it is that red house right there. That's, everybody's been in there because that's the entrance to Islands Yacht Club, as well as, it then feeds into all the other canals here to the east, to the west of that. And of course, at Christmas time, it's, very much used for looky-loos to see the decorations. In any case, this is the third busiest canal behind Ponce. If we go to the next slide, just, and Buckley's Pass, and many boats are speeding, and that means wake, higher wake than it should be. We would never be able to measure speed with this kind of, with any, probably any kind of camera, without being right there, or having a radar system. Anyway, they arrive here from the harbor, and this traffic has increased and also changed something quite a bit over the years. It's can be a dangerous place with big and small boats coming in, and kayaks, paddle boards, and even jet skis that go through here. I've been working with a resident to put this together. It was at his request, and he's been seeing this. He's lived there many, many years, and he's been very concerned that, and surprised that we haven't had an incident there in the past. And part of his argument, too, is that it does affect the seawalls as these waves keep pounding on them, as well as on boat lifts. And there are a few other structures along the water there that might be impacted, too. If we go to the next one. This camera would be placed on a private property in the easement area down by the seawall. And it would monitor speeds, really wakes, and also be routine surveillance for any other activities. Camera surveillance of canals has come up multiple times over the years. I've read through those, and I think it was in parts of the handout today. And generally, people seem supportive of it, and the various committees that have looked at it have been supportive, but because of the costs, which have been quite high in the past, and the technology limitations, it never got anywhere. The cameras these days are much cheaper, and they do take video and are self-contained. They don't require power, or we've learned that in some cases they even require air conditioning. And the information does go to a cell phone, which you can observe the information on. It should be able to record FL numbers and boat names. Now here's the one of the issues here doing this. If an incident occurs, the video can be reviewed by the cell phone or on a computer, and the police can contact offenders as appropriate to warn them. They cannot offer or issue a citation because, as with everything else with the police, they must have seen it occur themselves. The police can, as I said, can monitor, but to actually determine when they should look at this information, we need to have someone call them and say, at this sort of time in the day, in the morning, whatever, we saw this, and can you look at this particular area of the video and see what you see? And if there is an issue, they can then contact the boat owner and just warn them that there was an issue and that please don't do it again. I've been informed that if it happens multiple times, there might be further action that could be taken. There'd also be appropriate signage that could be placed, that would be placed on the property to encourage compliance. And next. Again, the camera does come on automatically, obviously, and can, if there is an issue that is not boat related but something else going on, it can be used for investigation to find further support whatever there's there. This is I've got a couple videos here. They're very short. This one is not a video, I don't think. This just shows. Stop. Don't go too fast.
Sorry. Do you want it to go back?
Yeah, if you can. Yeah, just stay there till I say. This was taken, unfortunately, in Quebec recently. You can see the date. And it was a cloudy, or not a cloudy, but a misty day, so it's not as clear as it could be. Also, I should say up front, the videos you're going to see are not that clear because the originals we saw from what they sent us were pretty good, but as we transferred it through our computer and through this computer, the quality goes down, but it isn't as bad as it looks here. Next one. This is showing the same view a little bit to the other direction of where the camera is sitting. And next. And this is Oh, this is showing, there's down at the bottom here in the center, you see a canoe, and it just can show you what's happening with the canoe moving. And next. And this is a person in the same area. Next. And this is him at at an evening time. And next. And there they went, and he's walking down. You can see the difference in quality. Unfortunately, that is the lighting, better the lighting than the first one. And this one here is a nighttime view, and next, and it shows a little bit of what you can see with the camera at night. Does that one go forward? Yeah. Again, the lighting all of a sudden changed, but you can actually read the license plate on that car as it goes by. And next, okay. As I said, this is a pilot program that will start with the one camera site. And if successful, we'd expand it to other sites, most notably the other major entrances to our canal system. Many cities now already use similar surveillance cameras to do their job. Venice has some 20 cameras to monitor activities both along the shore and downtown. I should say that to be fully explaining, those are wired cameras though, so they probably have a little better resolution. I'm asking for your support in this project and the funds for the first camera site that are approximately $2,000. And that's what I have for an introduction.
Discussion. I have experience with this in a couple ways. Burnt Store Isles implemented a camera system several years ago. And it was funded by the Burnt Store Isles Association and not the city. And it was a decision after some events that took place that the community wanted to be able to provide surveillance. The cameras are not monitored. And we've recently reached an agreement with the police department that they can access the footage right away as opposed to having a delay. It used to be that they would contact the responsible party at Burnt Store Isles Association and they would help them. And we have three. We have 2 cameras, one on Monaco, one on Madrid at our entrances, and then we have one on Candia Drive where the lock is. It's on the property there, so these are for surveillance only. But PGPD can access the footage and has to help. These were funded by the association. And the Pickleplex is also, they have 1 camera right now, but we are installing 2 more cameras to actually provide surveillance because we've had some incidents out there. There will be the FSW security will be able to access the footage, the cameras live. And we are also, we'll be able to provide access to the cameras for the members, people who join the Pickleplex, so that they'll be able to see this as well. So we want to be able to not only see what's going on, but I think, if the residents want a system, I know I've been approached before on this from other people in PGI about it, and it's something where I feel like it should be something that PGICA could do for that community. It's a great idea. I just question that using city funds to do it. Lynn?
Yeah, I don't support the city spending funds to do this.
I talked yesterday with the president of the PGICA. They are not willing to spend money on this at this time. This has been brought before 3 prior city council organization groups in the past, and every one of them denied it for numerous reasons. For liability is the most important of all. It puts the city in a liability position. If there is an issue that has to be addressed, then the city becomes the responsible party for owning that equipment that took that footage. Monitoring and enforceability is next to impossible. There's no way, we would have to put a whole monitoring program in place that requires a full-time employee to monitor and enforce anything that is a situation. There's no justification for it. I asked for a public records request this week from the police department. And I asked for records going back 5 years for any boat thefts and boat equipment thefts from canals and PGI and BSI for the last 5 years. There were 2 instances in the last 5 years. And this, if you go back 7 or 8 or 9 years, we had pirates that were coming in, and they were coming in and stealing boats. And we had several boats, brand new, beautiful boats, stolen out of the waters of the canal system. Those guys were all caught, they were taken away, and we haven't had a problem since then. The instances of what has been taken in the last 5 years, one was just a motor that was stolen off of a sailboat in a PGI canal, and the other was a dinghy that mysteriously disappeared from someone's dock while they were out of town for several months, and it could have floated away in a high tide for all I know. But the dinghy disappeared off the dock and it was reported. That being said, I don't see that there's enough of a security issue that we should be doing this at this time. And I certainly don't think that it's up to the city to pay for this kind of a system to be implemented at this point in time. We also have now 2 Marine Patrol boats that are fully operational on the water, and we can make sure that we get Corporal Trufan and his team out there monitoring a little bit more aggressively to watch for speeding boats. There's no doubt there's speeding boat problems. I mean, I live on the Rim Canal, and believe me when I tell you, if there's a storm brewing at 3 in the afternoon and somebody's out there on a fishing trip, they beat feet through the canal like there's no tomorrow going home. And they go by my house on plane, and I've had stuff knocked off the counters in my boat a number of times. But be that as it may, that's stuff that can be enforced by the police, and I'm just afraid of the Big Brother whole thing. What some of the things that I would suggest that we consider in lieu of is to put more signage on the canals that tells people that they're being monitored, and do something that BSI did. I spoke to CJ from the security committee from BSIA yesterday, and what they've done is they've actually written letters to all of the residents in BSI and asked for people who have cameras on their docks and their waterfront areas to register with the city that they have cameras, that they would be willing to share footage if there is an incident that gets reported. And they have, Lieutenant DeVault has a list of all of those people, and we might do the same thing in PGI and ask them to voluntarily offer to allow us to use their video if we find that there was an incident that needs to be looked at, excuse me. Excuse me. So I would rather see us do something like that and do a much more moderate approach. And perhaps if this resident that you're working with would be interested in putting a camera on his dock, that he would do that. That would be a start. But I just don't see, I can't justify an expense for it at this point in time. I mean, we've got to do everything we can to start crunching some numbers more seriously. There's thousands and thousands of things we could be spending money on, but there's things that are a lot more important than this, and I just don't see that it's justified at this point in time.
Debbie?
My concern is that there's no way to enforce it. You know, I have the same situation. There are 2 people on my canal that have the giant boats with the inboard motors. And, you know, I realize that the definition of what they can do to go out is not what I wish they would have to do for speed. But when, you know, when they're still awake 3 minutes after the boat has left the canal in front of my house, there's a problem. And I worry about my seawalls. But there's no enforcement. I've talked to Chief Davis about this. Civic Association went to them and asked, what can we do? And there's just no way to enforce it. And, you know, I'm sorry, but having the police call and say, you know, you were going too fast, they're going to say, oh, okay, thanks, I won't do it again. And then the next time they're out there, boom. So I don't see the expense for, I don't see it as a benefit.
Yeah, I will have to add, as I recall, one of the motivating factors for Burnt Straw Isles was not only some things that went on where we wanted to track who was coming in via a vehicle coming in, but there were some incidents with small boat motors being stolen out of our canal system. And I know that one person whose grandchildren and he were overnight on the boat, and they actually heard the people in the canal system. So we had that kind of thing going on at the time. So that was another motivating factor to want to put it, especially have one at the lock where people could be coming in. But it's strictly for surveillance, and again, it's a voluntary thing. When the association voted for it, some people did bring up the fact that they weren't especially in favor of having their activity monitored, and we have